never know how to feel about this song. I think I like it. I don't know. I'm not sure. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Stokastic.com NBA Deeper Dive, little 9-game slate here to close out the work week, presented by No House Advantage. I'm Dave Loughran, Loughran_D, filling in for Josh Engelman, but for the last time, at least until the end of the NFL season. He'll be back next week. So shout out to Josh Engelman getting back in the groove. I know he's itching to get back to this as well. So he'll be love him or hate him. You'll be seeing him shortly. Be back on these shows. You'll have the process back as well. So you got something to look forward to in 2023. Joining me, though, a little special action here tonight, filling in for Adam Scher, Alex Baker at Awesemo DFS. Awesemo himself, the man. What's going on, dude?
What's up, man? Yeah, just got back from Mexico yesterday. So I feel like I'm a few brain cells lighter than I was when I went. But hopefully we can come up with some good NBA plays here.
How was it?
It was fun, man. We did a little family Christmas trip out there. So it had a lot of margaritas, some good tacos and stuff. It was good.
Where were you? Tijuana?
In the Cancun area.
Nice. You got a beautiful tan going on coming back.
Yeah, it's like I'm probably blinding everyone right now. It's like the light is reflecting straight off my skin.
No, you could tell you've been in Mexico. Anyway.
You don't have to humor me here.
Good, because that's exactly what I was doing. All right. Well, we'll get into all these 9 games. Happy to have you guys with us. Hit that thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so yet. It goes a long way. I'm telling you. Very long way. So if you haven't, just take a single second. Atone for your sins. Help us appease the YouTube overlords here. Get us at least above 100 to start the show. I think that's a pretty simple ask. And you got Alex Baker rocking. You can't see it because of your name, but rocking the Pistons sweatshirt. Just a big Killian Hayes fan. What'd you think about that?
I thought it looked a lot worse the first time I saw it, and I kind of looked at it again, and it didn't look like he was really gunning for a knockout punch or anything. So, it seemed like it was a little bit overblown, but it kind of you gotta think Killian Hayes kind of gained a little bit of credit in the locker room because Detroit is all about the bad boy kind of vibes. So I know they got some guys that before it was Isaiah Stewart that threw down with LeBron or was about to. Now Killian Hayes is the guy. So it seems like they got a little fight in them.
Yeah, man. Hey, your Pistons on the come up. We're going to talk a lot about them today. Talk a lot about the Orlando Magic as well. You want to talk about some insane ownership. If you're using our ownership tools, they've recently been updated. You'll see exactly what I'm talking about. You likely don't even need ownership tools to know that the Orlando Magic are going to be very popular today. That is the first game on the slate. Washington at Orlando. Wizards laying 5.5. So Alex, they actually had to stagger the suspensions for Orlando, so they weren't down basically every player coming into this. So it's 5 tonight and 3 Wednesday, something ridiculous like that. We'll get into them, but first we'll go with the road team, Washington Wizards. As it stands right now, it's not a team that comes off as super appealing, but if Bradley Beal ends up not playing, that could change some things for sure. Now he warmed up ahead of Wednesday's game. He warmed up. And then was effectively ruled out of that one. So you think there is a legitimate chance that he's going to be out there today. I know we have him in our projections. Actually, we have 0.1 ownership, so I'm not sure if we do as far as ownership goes. What are you doing with the Wizards?
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of props out for the Wizards. So you got to think that maybe people are confident that Beal is going to come back today because that seems to match up with the props a little bit more. But that's why we have the shows, is so that we can keep you guys up to date all the way up to locks. So not a ton of need to really go through it right now, but I think Corey Kispert would get more minutes. He's not a great fantasy producer. Monty Morris might handle the ball a little bit more. But the thing you gotta like about this game is the matchup for the Wizards is good, with Orlando being really shorthanded. So the guy that seems to be benefiting the most is Porzingis, just because, more missed shots, more blocks and such. But yeah, what are you seeing here on the Wizards side?
At this point, I would assume that Bradley Beal plays. The only question I have right now is looking at the Wizards. You go, all right, can you get to them strictly because of the matchup? If the answer is yes, then I get that. But there's also some other really great plays in this 8K range today. With maybe I can't say equally good matchups because of how many players are ruled out for Orlando already. But wouldn't you say there's some pretty good like lower high range or upper mid range plays to where it makes sense that Washington's ownership is a little bit suppressed here, all of them coming in at single digits?
Yeah, I think what you see is when you got really good value like tonight, that's going to drive up the ownership on the very top end. So you got guys like Giannis that are very high owned, and
yeah, with no Holiday or Middleton.
Yeah, that's going to be a nice spot. So definitely a good play. And then LeBron also looks to be pretty solid. So it's maybe a stars and scrubs night, but that's always an opportunity because if you like fundamentally have a different build than everyone else, that can be an advantage.
If you had to pick your favorite players from Washington, would it be Porzingis right now, assuming Beal is in?
Yeah, I think Porzingis on both sides looks the most favorable, and I think it's all about the matchup. Just I think Porzingis is probably the one that would benefit the most.
All right, let's talk about Orlando here. This is wild. This feels like March basketball, right? This feels like coming up in the spring in meaningless games for a lot of these teams. Wendell Carter Jr. out, Suggs, of course, out, Mo Wagner out, Cole Anthony out, Mo Bamba, Gary Harris, even RJ Hampton left the bench where he spends most of his time. He is also out for this one. So you're talking right now about ownership that is insane. Ball, 58.6. Markelle Fultz, 45%. Franz Wagner, 36%. Terrence Ross, 32%. Paulo Banchero, 31%. Even Admiral Schofield coming in at low double digits today. So it's not as much of like, are these guys going to play? We know that they have a very short roster today, but because you can't, it's unavoidable. The Magic are unavoidable. How are you differentiating knowing that you have to get to a decent amount of Orlando regardless?
I'm just going to be a chalk donkey today.
Okay. Are you for real?
No, I'm just
okay. I was going to say that's not like you at all. All right. So what are you doing? Is there stuff we can play differently here? They're so popular.
Yeah, and I mean, it's for a really good reason. They got 8 guys, but 3 of those guys aren't really guys who are in the rotation. You got Kevon Harris, Caleb Houston, and Admiral Schofield all as the bench guys. And they're going to have to play, but you got to imagine the coach is going to try to keep the other guys on the floor as much as possible instead. So you could see extended run for guys like Franz Wagner and Markelle Fultz, especially because they don't really have a point guard aside from Fultz. So I think all the starters are very solid. You gotta think Fultz and Wagner maybe have the most minutes upside from this because Banchero already playing a lot of minutes, and then Bol is kind of like the best value of the slate because they're really short on their front court depth. So it looks like they're really short on the point guards and center. So those would be the 2 guys I would start off with.
Yeah, look, 8 players isn't the end of the world, but at the same time, I don't necessarily, like you said, is there not a concerted effort to get as much minutes as possible to these guys that are generally getting the most of the minutes to begin with? Plus more condensed usage in a spot like this, just overall more opportunities. Like with Markelle Fultz, how do we look at Markelle Fultz? Because he's of course going to be wildly popular and for good reason. And I know there was a discussion about this I saw earlier today. Fultz's minute. I mean, he played 33 minutes not long ago, so it's not. Fultz can get big minutes. We've seen him cross that 30-minute threshold a few times already, despite the fact that he doesn't do it all that often. How many minutes are you giving the Fultz today?
Yeah, it looks like we got around 34 to 35. So I think that seems reasonable given those concerns that he's not a guy they're going to throw out there like 40 minutes, right? So I think that he that's still a lot more minutes than he normally plays, which is around 29 to 30-ish. So it's 5 extra minutes. That's like 5 extra fantasy points. And these guys weren't that expensive to begin with. So I think Fultz is a great play. I'd probably pencil in Fultz and Bull into any lineup unless I really had a good reason to do otherwise.
Yeah. Is there anybody else here that could be viable that isn't really pulling a lot of ownership? Any of these bench options potentially?
I don't really think the bench options are any good. They're just not like high fantasy point per minute guys. All around like 3/4 of a fantasy point a minute, 2/3 or so. So I think that you need to see like 30 minutes and unless like I think we're pretty confident in the starting lineup and it's not going to have any of these guys. So it's really the starters. And this isn't a spot where I want to get too fancy and like, try to fade Bull to play Boncaro. I think if anything, I'd just play more than one or more than a couple Orlando guys, because the way I think about it is like you need every fantasy spot to get around 10 points above 5x, and the probability of doing that, it really depends like how much this combination of players is from that already. And Bull, it's like we have him for 5x plus 10, Fultz is plus 8, and Bancaro is plus 6, Wagner is plus 6. So it's like the amount of points you need to get more from this group of players than just some random dart throw. Like you need less for all 4 players combined than just some random dude that is going to be in your lineup. So very much in the range of possibilities.
Are you setting any limits on how many Orlando Magic players can be in your lineups when you're crunching? Because we know it's going to be a ton if there's no limitations there, if there's no restrictions.
Yeah, DraftKings, they have that limit of 6. I'll probably stick to that. I'll try to send them an email to see if I can add more, but no, I mean, it's really just the 5 starters. Terrence Ross is probably the lowest priority. I think Bull and Fultz, you probably want to play. Bull's salary on FanDuel is quite a bit higher. So on FanDuel, he's not nearly as good a value as on DraftKings. So on FanDuel, it looks like Fultz is probably the best play, and then Wagner and Bamba Bull is third. But on DraftKings, Bull is first, Fultz is second, and Wagner's third.
But just to make sure I heard you right, you're okay with having 5 Magic in the same lineup?
I don't have anything against it. I don't really love Terrence Ross enough to really go for that. It's just he doesn't look like an amazing play. Even in 30 minutes, we only have him projected for 18 fantasy points. So he's definitely someone I'm not going to prioritize tonight. But the other 4 guys, you can mix and match in any lineup.
All right, let's talk about Phoenix and Toronto. We'll keep this one moving here. Phoenix 2-point dogs. Devin Booker now. I mean, the guy comes back on Christmas, only lasts a couple minutes, and now he's out for a month or more. So that's rough. Cameron Johnson's still out. Cameron Payne's out. Landry Shamet's out. So this is another Phoenix team that's definitely hamstrung by these injuries. DeAndre Ayton, we've got at 13.7%. I know Adam Scher was telling me the other day that people were coming at him for the Dwayne Washington thing, saying that he didn't love it. But if you actually look at that game, they were 7.5-point dogs on the road. Dwayne Washington didn't play a single minute alongside Chris Paul. Starters got pulled. Washington plays like 17 straight minutes to close out the game, and he's just chucking. So, I mean, it was one of those really weird spots where in the event that game's competitive, he probably plays what, like 15 minutes or something like that. He didn't play much in the first half. He's rightfully not popular today at 1.9%. But I'm curious what you're doing with the top guys like Ayton and Chris Paul today.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're about average plays, to be honest, because Chris Paul, I think he'll just play the same minutes he's been getting, and Dwayne Washington will pick up the rest. But he's not a guy that they've been really running out for huge minutes, around the 32 to 34 range usually. And then DeAndre Ayton, I think he's solid enough, but just don't really see enough like motivation to get to these guys compared to a team like Orlando where there's so much value. It just looks like Aiden's price on DraftKings at 7,500 is a discount. He's a good play. Will he make top two centers from Atlanta? I'm not sure. So I'd say he's definitely in the mix, but not someone I'm going to be going after.
All right, let's flip to the Toronto side then. I'm not sure there's going to be a whole lot more here either. I think Siakam is always viable just because Nick Nurse runs his guys for, particularly Siakam for massive minutes. He's coming in at 4%. But like you mentioned earlier, there's some good high-priced options. I mean, Giannis is the marquee player tonight. We'll get to that game. Wait till you hear his rates from last game out. It was just mind-blowing. But we're waiting on Fred VanVleet. Precious Achiuwa could return too. He's questionable, but VanVleet with those back spasms is questionable. I would assume he plays here, but nobody from either side of this game is all that popular today. And I think probably for good reason. OG Anunoby, as a matter of fact, getting around 10%.
Yeah. Anunoby, I mean, he's been playing monster minutes recently. So around 37 a game in the last 5. So it definitely makes sense. VanVleet being in or out, that's going to be a big piece of news here because he plays huge minutes, and it looks like last game Malachi Flynn was kind of in the mix. Looks like Banton's out, so you'd have more confidence in Flynn. But Chris Boucher, I misread this. Okay. Siakam, I think, would benefit a ton because he's the secondary playmaker after VanVleet. So, I guess he has more assists than VanVleet even, but
it would still benefit him in that respect for sure.
Definitely. So his price is high. It's not going to be a Giannis tonight, but I think he's a great play.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know. We'll talk about LeBron in the next game. So that clearly is a spot, but with VanVleet off the floor this season, Siakam 1.4 DraftKings points per minute, which is pretty appealing to when you consider the fact that he plays so many minutes, 31% usage rate without VanVleet. What's his assist rate? Probably pretty decent. Leads the team at 29.2%. So those are actually really good rates for a guy that can play 40 minutes in any regular season game. But let's talk about the Lakers. They're 6-point dogs, 243 total in this game, which is just massive. Of course, Anthony Davis is done for quite some time. Lonnie Walker's questionable. I want to get into just how we're attacking some of these higher priced guys. Start obviously here with LeBron James. You look at him this season in the 8 games he's played without Anthony Davis, 1.55 DraftKings points per minute, 34% assist rate, 35% usage rate, 11% rebound rate. So the numbers are exactly what you'd expect them to be. They're very good. It's not exactly Giannis without Middleton and Holiday rates, which is through the roof, but it's still very solid in a game with such a massive total.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this game 243, that's a crazy over-under. And LeBron, I mean, without AD, he's always been a huge performer. AD's been out for a couple of weeks, so the prices are kind of adjusted, but I think he's looking like a great play for like 5 points above 5x, and you have the value to be able to get to him. So really don't have much reason to not play LeBron tonight.
Do you have anything else for this? I mean, of course, it's Russell Westbrook. This is another guy who Russell Westbrook's career has been slowly spiraling downward over the last couple of seasons, particularly since he went to the Lakers, but he's still getting some ownership. He's not priced exactly cheap either, though. I mean, at this price point, a pretty solid mid-range price point. Are you looking to get to Westbrook today?
So as far as minutes, he's been kind of in the 24 to 30 range, so a little bit of variance. He's usually someone that you want to target when the other assist guys are out. And that's not the case today. So I don't see a ton of reason to go there. You probably have a lot better options.
Anybody else for the Lakers? No,
I'm not seeing a ton yet.
All right. Let's talk about Detroit then and Chicago. Your Pistons, the bad boys, Alex. 8-point dogs here. 231 total against the Chicago Bulls. So we saw last game after Killian Hayes was ejected. It was I think right before halftime, right? I believe it was right before halftime. Killian Hayes gets ejected from that game. It was because Alec Burks came in for the final 33 seconds of the half and then played the entire third quarter and played 9 minutes in the fourth quarter. So he played all but 4 minutes, give or take 4 minutes in that last game. That's pretty significant. No surprise he's getting this much ownership today. So 30 minutes in a game for Alec Burks, where the large majority of it came in the second half. How many minutes should we responsibly project for Alec Burks today, now that we're on to a new game and we're not just running him out there at halftime and having to reset the table without any time to do so?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think, the main thing is they just don't have a lot of guards. You could see Sadiq Bey start or Alec Burks start. I don't know if it makes a huge difference because Bey's been playing a lot of minutes off the bench already. So it'd be Burks getting those minutes most likely. So I think he's looking like a great play today. They're going to need a lot of ball handling help with Killian Hayes out, and he's the guy that can make stuff happen with the ball in his hands, along with Ivy. I mean, those are really the two playmakers for the Pistons tonight. So Burks, his salary is just too low for the role he's going to have tonight.
With Alec Burks, Sadiq Bey, Jalen Duren, Corey Joseph. Corey Joseph's minimum salary. Normally, we probably wouldn't talk about that all that much, but just given that he is the dead min here, do you think he gets enough minutes in order to produce? Because it's not exactly like you're coming into a game and saying, yeah, Corey Joseph is a stellar fantasy point per minute guy. He never has been. He's not a high usage guy either, so he's going to have to produce elsewhere. Does it make sense to you seeing him almost at 10% because he's minimum salary?
Not on tonight's slate. It doesn't make a ton of sense to me because you do have some very good values. So I just don't really see how Corey Joseph would crack your lineup unless, I mean, even if we get news of him starting, I think if we move him up to like 26 or 28 minutes, like he'd probably be a decent value, but nothing too exciting. So I'm not seeing a ton of like reason to roll with Corey Joseph, but with Killian Hayes out, there is a chance that he could start. So we'll have to wait and see the starting lineup, but he's not a guy that really has a ton of upside.
For sure. Yeah, it's just ever since Cunningham went down, Killian Hayes has been playing pretty considerable minutes almost every night. So it takes a big chunk out of there. Diallo, of course, out as well. I'll get to these super chats in a minute, guys. I appreciate you. I did not miss them. I see them all. We'll hit them in just a second. Let's close out Detroit, though. Is there anything else for the Pistons that you want to get to?
Oh, yeah. I mean, Jalen Duren, he's been a nice player as a rookie this year. So I think he's always in consideration. I don't know if tonight's really any different than another night, but solid value. Sadiq Bey, I think he should benefit a little bit with some of the guys being out. And yeah, those are the guys I'd be looking at.
All right, so let's talk about Minnesota and Milwaukee then. Minnesota Timberwolves. We got some serious question marks here as well. If you thought this slate was already wild because of the suspensions, it could get a whole lot more unique. in the event that Rudy Gobert ends up being out. And this is an interesting one because whenever you see somebody that gets ruled questionable in the middle of the day with an illness, and it's not something they've been battling for a couple of days or so, and there's a good possibility that they'll be, that is concerning to me. I think it was added to like the 3:00 injury report. And if that's the case, you're going to see a whole lot of Naz Reid again. Of course, Naz Reid's price point it has not bottomed out yet because he did get those opportunities with Gobert out of the lineup but not long ago. And he's also, playing relatively decent minutes, but would Naz Reid be one of the top value options at center for you, or power forward eligibility as well? Jordan McLaughlin out still. Would Naz Reid, if Rudy Gobert is out, be somebody that stands out in a big way to you?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think Naz Reid has been playing a lot of minutes the last 3 games already. So looks like the last game that Gobert was out, he played monster minutes, which is
40, right?
Yeah, it's pretty surprising, to be honest. I didn't realize he was that much far ahead of the other guys in the center.
Oh, my fault. Hold on. Let me do. I forgot to get to Chicago. I had to let this damn dog out of my office because my wife's coming home and she'll start barking and I have to mute, and I got flustered. So let's do that. I'll come back to Chicago. I promise you guys. Thank you for keeping me. What's that?
We skipped Atlanta too, I think.
Oh, dude, I'm all over the fucking place.
It's all good.
Why don't you tell me these things? Why would you let me go?
Man, I slid
an entirely
DMs.
Different game.
I was just going along with it.
I have a producer.
I was like, maybe
I'm just gonna do one. I'm just gonna do one team for each game then.
Yeah, it's like I was thinking, let's just do all the road teams first and all the home teams.
Oh, it's been a long 2 weeks, man. That's my excuse. My apologies, guys. All right. Let me just do this then, please. All right. Let's do this game. Let's do both teams in this game, as a matter of fact. Okay. I don't smoke weed, Holmes. I'm tired. Let's do both teams in this one, and then we'll go back. All right. Everything will be fine. We'll get through this. I hope. Minnesota, Naz Reid. Sorry, go ahead. I had to interrupt you there because I just realized not only one, but 2 teams that we have skipped, and we are 5 games or 6 games in. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think that if Rudy Gobert is out, then Naz Reid's going to be up there with the Orlando guys as one of the top values, maybe even past them, given his price on DraftKings. On FanDuel, a little bit more expensive, but it's like not only does he benefit from more minutes, but also like any minutes he's going to spend with Gobert on the court normally, like he's not going to rebound nearly as much as with Gobert off the court. So I think that he stands out as someone that you want to keep in mind when you're building your lineup, that if we don't have the news by lock, then you're going to want to get on to Naz Reid.
All right. What about the rest of Minnesota? Because right now it just doesn't look that good for the Timberwolves.
Yeah, it doesn't. I mean, Milwaukee's a tough matchup, and there's not a lot of injuries. Kyle Anderson also questionable. But if he comes back, that's gonna take some minutes away from other guys. So I'm not seeing a ton of value here.
All right, so Milwaukee, last game, Giannis Antetokounmpo. All right, good. We're getting both teams here. Giannis Antetokounmpo attempted 39 shots. He had a 51.2% usage rate in that game. It's insane. 51. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
I mean, I have to imagine it keep up that way because everyone's going to be trying to get a 60-20-10 game since Luka did it, right? So, yeah, I think Giannis with no Drew and Chris Middleton, like that's a spot where you got to expect some of the highest projections of anyone of the season, right? So I think he's a no-brainer.
Yeah, I don't know if it's the 111 or whatever it was that Doncic had that we're getting tonight, but I mean, not to mention, I think it's probably worth pointing out that if you have Rudy Gobert sidelined for this game, usually we don't dig too much into individual matchups and stuff, but you're talking about what, like a 3-time defensive player of the year that could be absent. If he's out and it's an undersized Naz Reid manning the starting center position, this matchup for a guy like Giannis, who, gets most of his buckets around the rim, this matchup looks a whole lot better for him if Rudy Gobert sits. Not that you wouldn't play him regardless, but it looks a lot better if Rudy's out too.
Definitely. Yeah, that's a good point. So I think Naz Reid could be a foul trouble candidate as well, because if
True.
he's out there guarding Giannis on regular possessions, that could be really difficult as far as fouls. They do have plenty of centers backing him up with Nathan Knight and Luka Garza. So, they might throw the kitchen sink at Giannis tonight if Gobert's out.
Right. So it's not just Holiday and Middleton, who's, extended absence here, came back for a little cameo action and then disappeared again. Who knows what's going on with that? But George Hill's doubtful too. And George Hill played considerable minutes with Drew Holiday out last game. Javon Carter is not an exciting player. He's like a 3/4 fantasy point per minute guy for on the season. But you have him, you have Grayson Allen, Connaughton. And I did want to get your thoughts too. You can do this in whatever order you want. We can break it down, but I want to get your thoughts on Bobby Portis, just if you think there's enough there at this price point, given that usage should be pretty condensed without, the two of the big three here. Of course, Giannis is going to soak up most of that, but at the same time, Portis this season without these two has a 24% usage rate. Is he viable to you or any of these other guys? Because Javon Carter's pulling 20+% right now. Allen around 13. Outside of Giannis, who do you like the most here for the Bucks?
I think Javon Carter, just because with Drew Holiday out, it's not necessarily just a minutes thing. I think that his role will probably be different on the team because he is someone that plays the point guard position. Although normally when Holiday starts, he's been playing a wing. So I think you could see more assists from Javon Carter starting at point guard tonight. They really don't have any other point guards on the roster that that I guess AJ Green, I don't know who that guy is, but I think Javon Carter should see a bump. Grayson Allen, you should see more minutes. Those would be the two guys that probably benefit the most.
Okay. All right. It's crazy. I've done I was trying to think, how many shows have I done over the years? Probably 10,000 plus, maybe more. First time I've ever made such a huge blunder, at least with two teams in 2 games. Let's back it up. We'll go and we'll hit these super chats first. Fresca with the super chat. I know there's infinite value, but how do we not lock in Drummond tonight with all the revenge in his heart? Just kidding. Just wanted to say thanks. Love the shows. Thanks, man. Appreciate you. I'll always appreciate the support here, even when your boy's struggling on the other side. All right, next one we got, I think it was Jorge. Was it our boy Jorge?
Nice.
Can you send me these, Tyler? Jorge, feel honored having these two legends running the show. Running the show is that's a stretch, my friend. Bad day to send that, but I appreciate you, Jorge.
Yeah, it's like two legends. We're like the second stringers.
Yeah, we're just backing things up today. But it means a lot. We appreciate you. All right, there's some super chats from earlier. Okay, here we go. We had one from Anthony. I'll ask you, Alex. This is perfect. This is right up your alley. How do you differentiate building 60 lineups as opposed to 150, if at all? Thanks.
Well, I think the general principles of every lineup are going to be the same. The one thing I recommend is you don't want your lineups to overlap too much with one another, because then you're just competing with yourself for first place. So I just recommend, having two uniques probably, just to make sure that each lineup is significantly different and not just a 1v1.
All right. Making sure, I think that's everything, Tyler. We got it. All right. CJ. All right, let's go back to Atlanta here. We're circling back. Back that sidebar up for me, Tyler. All right. Atlanta Hawks. I mentioned earlier, massive total in this game. Still no Clint Capella. DeAndre Hunter questionable. 243 total. One of the high. They might have the highest implied total on the slate, as a matter of fact. I haven't looked, but it's got to be up there. Let's start with the two big guys, Trae Young, who's probable, and DeJounte Murray. Any interest in them at their price points?
No, it's done tonight. I'd say Trae Young being back today, that should make DeJounte Murray a little bit less exciting. And then it looks like the only injury news here is DeAndre Hunter is questionable. It doesn't really seem like it's going to make a huge difference one way or the other. So really the guys that I think are going to benefit here are John Collins, who's going to play more center with Capella out, and Onyeka Okongwu for the more minutes potential. So in games where Capella has missed, he's seen up to, the high 30s in minutes. So I think that Okongwu, pretty reasonable to take a shot on.
All right. Now, is there anybody else for Atlanta?
No, I'm not. I mean, Trae Young's all right, but probably they're better options.
All right, let's talk about Chicago then. For anyone just coming into the show right now, they're thinking, what is going on? All right, Detroit, we hit on some suspensions there, not nearly as many as Orlando, but let's talk about the Chicago Bulls here. When it comes to Levine and DeRozan and Nikola Vucevic, it's always kind of hard to differentiate between them. A lot of times it'll come down to just positional scarcity. Vuce and Levine are the same price essentially, and they're all similar fantasy point per minute guys. DeMar's at 9,100 on DraftKings. What do you do with the Chicago Bulls today against the Pistons? They're 8-point favorites in this one.
I think that the Bulls tonight, they don't really look like a team that's going to make or break your slate. Of course, Alex Caruso, that's a guy you always want to play. And if he gets to start tonight, I think he'd be all right. But I think that you can take some shots on Vooch. Drummond I like the revenge game narrative, but for some reason, man, he just has never played more than like 20 minutes in a game this season. So I'm not seeing a ton here.
All right. So we could have skipped this team.
Yeah. You knew what you were doing the whole time.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Joke's on you guys. All right, let's talk about Philly and New Orleans. Not a ton from this game at all. Before we do, though, shout out to our sponsor, No House Advantage. If you have not checked them out yet, they've just upped the first match deposit bonus from $50 to $100, which is awesome. All of the tools over at Stokastic for No House Advantage, built by you, are at your disposal for free, whether it's the optimal lineups tool, whether it's the player prop projections. But the biggest thing, and you say it every time, Alex, it's the overlay. Like, you're just getting massive overlay and you're not getting that anywhere else.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, I think the overlay, that's going to just mean that there's more money coming out of the contest than there's going into it. So that's really, I know there's a lot of guys that built their bankroll a few years ago, just off overlay. It's good to have some skills too, but I think that it's a proven method to grow your bankroll, and that's really what we're here to do. So, yeah,
it's 266 out of 1,200 right now for the main contest tonight. It's 530. Kind of tells you all you need to know, and all you're doing is building lineups with player props. That's it. It's simple. Like, there's no learning curve. You're not going into some nonsensical revolutionized fantasy platform where you look at it and you go, all right, it's going to take me 16 weeks to figure out what I'm supposed to do here. Not at all. You're just taking props. The players you like the most, right? They go at the top, they get the most points. The ones you like the least go at the bottom, they get the fewest points. It's that simple, right? You're playing against the field for cash with a ton of overlay, up to $100 first match deposit bonus, and all of our tools at your disposal. So the link's in the description. The link is in chat if you guys wanted to check that out. And while you're there, check out the other format that they have. You can play against the house, and if you hit all of your picks, you 21 extra entries. So Very cool format. Definitely suggest you check No House Advantage out. Take advantage of the overlay, the free tools, and the deposit bonus. Thanks to our sponsor, No House Advantage. By the way, Alex, have you been following the quadruple homicide in Idaho? I hope they're not watching. Have you been following the quadruple homicide developments from the Idaho College?
No, man, there's way too much DFS going on to pay attention to that.
Oh, this is a crazy one, man. This is like the Cosmo DiNardo one back in the day from Bucks County, Pennsylvania, which is where I grew up. Check that one out if you haven't. This is crazy. Well, they just arrested a suspect who, believe it or not, was pursuing a PhD in criminal justice. How about that? Check it out.
PhD, wow.
In criminal justice. So he knew a little something about a little something going into. I can't believe you haven't followed. Pretty crazy.
I saw something on Twitter, but it's just like, it didn't seem like something I needed to click.
Go down a rabbit hole sometime. Go down a rabbit hole. Someone said criminology, whatever it was. I mean, this JoJo said the story is nuts. Yes, Quinn, the story is real. I'm telling you, it took them 6 weeks. They found them in the Poconos, which is like an hour above me, and it happened in Idaho. All right, we'll get back to the show here, but it's fascinating to say.
Beal just got ruled out. So
who did?
Bradley Beal.
Oh wow, okay.
Yep. So I think
that's big.
Yeah. Let me see what the projections are gonna look like here. And I don't see a ton, honestly, even with Beal out. So Monty Morris looks like a reasonable play. Porzingis, let's see. Porzingis moved up a couple points. Kuzma moved up a point, maybe. So nothing like shattering, but Porzingis is looking like a pretty good play now.
Yeah, he does look pretty nice. Ritz said, my man, Ritz, when Laffy says check something out, you check it out and don't ask questions. Damn right. Check it out. After this and after live before lock, though. Okay. Wait till the game's lock. Wait till live before lock. You got Greg Ehrenberg and EMac coming up next. They're going to wrap this up and take you into the weekend strong. And then check out the quadruple slaying from the Idaho school in Moscow. Strong segue. All right, let's talk about Philly and New Orleans. Again, if you guys are just joining, I mixed some stuff up earlier. So we did talk about Minnesota and Milwaukee. If you wanted to go back to that, you can just check the sidebar, just scrub at the bottom. Philly and New Orleans, and hit that thumbs up. 500 is the goal. We will get there. We have 30 minutes left. We're more than halfway there. Atone for your sins. Take a second. Heading into the new year. My New Year's resolution is to get 500 likes tonight. All right. Minnesota, Milwaukee, done. Philadelphia, -1 against the Pelicans. Still no Brandon Ingram. He's been ruled out. But with Philadelphia, what did I say?
Oh no, I was just someone was like, Alex is in Mexico or wasn't in Mexico. He didn't do it. I'm just glad I had it out of the way.
Okay. Philadelphia 76ers. Tyrese Maxey's expected back tonight. We had just seen some really great performances recently from Embiid and Harden with Maxey sidelined. We had seen some great performances from Maxey with these guys sidelined. And now you get all three of them back for the first time in over a calendar month. So if we're looking at this tonight, given that all the price points nothing's really adjusted yet. And that's where I'm having a difficult time with it. Should we be looking at the 76ers top three with Maxey coming back, likely limited based on him being out for an extended period of time with a foot injury? Are any of these guys going to jump off the page at us?
No, I mean, I think it's going to be a downgrade for everyone because Maxey does have, relatively high usage and assist numbers. So, there's not really any motivating force bringing you to the 76ers tonight. There's just no value to speak of here. Oh, by the way, I feel like we need to talk about what the concept of a New Year's resolution is, because I thought you started doing it after New Year's, not
dude,
like...
leave me alone, man. Leave me alone. It needs, put it this way, it needs to be resolved by New Year's. How's that?
All right. Well, if we don't get 500 likes before New Year's, we're gonna have to tweet out links to this video to get the like count up.
Yeah, that would be hilarious. like days, weeks after it. Not there yet. Do you do New Year's resolutions?
I have a different approach every year. Like sometimes I do sincere ones. One year, my New Year's resolution was to play less DFS. Like knowing that most people fail in New Year's resolutions, I'm like, yeah, I'm just gonna play like tons of DFS. What about you?
Yeah, I'm gonna do it. Just I'm gonna go with the generic bullshit. Get healthier,
Okay.
eat healthier is the thing, and do more cardio. How about that?
Yeah.
More cardio. Gotta keep this heart pumping. That's it.
I know, man. It's like if you could spend 30 minutes to get like an hour or two, like free for the rest of your life, it's like
Worth it.
it's like the amount of return you're getting on that time is immense. But yeah, I don't do it.
Yeah, because it's like, is this 30 minutes worth the extra 2 hours of being 88 and immobile? That's the question. So I don't know. We'll see how it works. The only reason I'm setting one 2 weeks in advance is so I can spend 2 weeks just doing terrible stuff and being like, well, New Year's Day, this changes.
No, that's a great way to do it. Is you
Sharp
just
move.
you degen out fully. Like I never smoke except New Year's Eve because then it's like I'm just gonna give it up next year.
Yeah,
It's the easiest New Year's resolution ever.
exactly. Did you want to close anything out with Philly, or is this a generally unappealing team to you today?
Yeah, I don't really see much here.
All right, let's talk about New Orleans. So Zion's back, of course. They're getting this might be the lowest owned team on the slate, believe it or not. The more I look at it, I mean, just nobody really profiles all that well here. Joval getting around 4% on this one. Zion at 1, everybody else below that. I guess it makes sense just given their salaries and how many other great top tier options there are. On FanDuel, you have, Joval 4%, Zion's 10K flat. He's at 3%. Is there anybody for New Orleans that you could see yourself not sprinkling in, but getting over the field on?
Not really. I mean, yeah, Zion coming back last game. I think that kind of reduces the usage of everyone else. The only injury news here is Herb Jones is questionable, so don't really see a ton here. Larry Nance is out this one, doubtful at the moment, but then you just see those backup minutes going to Hayes and Hernan Gomez. So I'm really not seeing a ton here. What about you?
No, I think the tools tell the story for the Pelicans today. Does Zion's the only one I look at and you go, all right, well, he's 1% owned. Sixers do have a good defense, though. They're top 10 defensive rating. They play at a slow pace as well, which just adds another element to this, right? I mean, I think they're the fourth slowest paced team in the league, and they are second in defensive rating this year. So, like, Pelicans have played solid defense. They're 6th. Granted, they have a couple of absences. We don't expect Larry Nance to play either. And I believe Herb Jones is still questionable, right? Or is he out?
Yep. Yeah, questionable.
Yeah, he's still questionable. Larry Nance doubtful. Brandon Ingram out. So yeah, I don't know. It's just not a spot that really stands out. What's the total in this game? It can't be 229.5. It's actually higher than most 76ers games. But yeah, I think we can move on to Miami and Denver if you're good with that.
Yeah, man, it's funny that sometimes the best basketball games are like the worst for fantasy basketball.
It happens all the time. But rarely do you feel that way with football, right?
That's true. Yeah. Maybe it's just a basketball thing now that you mention it.
Unless it's, well, baseball too, if you like pitching duels. But with football, unless it's like a Ravens Steelers game, like this week 17 game between them is going to be fun. Even if there's 20 total points scored, those two teams just go out there and beat the shit out of each other every game. Every time they see each other, that's fun. But normally, if you're looking at the schedule, you're going, what's the best game? It's going to be the Bills and Bengals. And of course, that's a game with, a monster total, and it's going to have a lot of value. So you're right. So some of these games are just wildly unappealing. from a DFS standpoint, despite being pretty good games on paper. What about, though, Miami and Denver? Because Miami's a 4-point dog, 224.5 total. For the first time in a while, Caleb Martin's the only significant piece here that's questionable. Jimmy Butler's probable. Does that, though, make Miami a very difficult team to get to on a night where we have so many other options that are popping because of injuries and suspensions and everything else?
Yeah, this is perfect, man. You're already giving me the answer with the questions. So
we still got 23 minutes to go, so you better think of something.
All right. Well, Udonis Haslem, I don't know if we talked about him. He's questionable. Yeah, Caleb Martin being questionable. Like, he has been playing a decent amount of minutes, but like, you got to think that guys like Max Strus will just get those minutes instead. So Strus is actually kind of expensive, so I don't think that really would be a DFS play. Bam Adebayo is a good player, but it's just like you need a good player plus like players on their team being out to really make a play a good one on the slate.
All right. Flip to the other side. So you have Jokic at 11.8, but you have Giannis Antetokounmpo at 11.9. This is where we got to get into. This is where your expertise comes into play heavily for almost 2,300 people watching right now, right? It's where to get different, where to not be stupid. You're gonna guide us through this one, because right now Giannis is coming in. And I do want to update our ownership here just to make sure that everything is accurate and that we're both seeing the same thing. Last update was okay, perfect. 13 minutes ago. So last update 13 minutes ago, Jokic, we have at 5.8% ownership. This is a tougher matchup against Miami. We're still waiting on news from Jamal Murray and Aaron Gordon. We'll pay attention to that. Bruce Brown's also questionable. But Giannis Antetokounmpo is 33% right now. Is there any sense in getting a little overweight on Jokic just because of how low owned he is today?
Probably not. Yeah, I think like the other number that we have, the boom percentage, right, on the boom bust tool. So Giannis has a 49% chance of getting a boom score, which we're kind of saying that's enough to be in a winning lineup. So
so I don't mean to cut you off, but how common is that to see almost a 50% boom score for a guy that's almost 12K?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard for guys to be projected this high, so I'd say it's pretty uncommon. He is a good play that's even better because of the value on the slate. And when you take a guy like Jokic, he projects well for the salary, about 5x. But the problem is like the times he doesn't beat Giannis and you have Jokic instead of Giannis, you're gonna have a hard time cracking that cash line. So that does determine a lot of your long-term success is how often you cash. So like you are giving up a pretty big disadvantage to other teams when you pick Jokic instead of Giannis with that 11.8K.
Okay. Yeah, it makes sense. Had to ask though, just because they're so close in price, and it's not common that we see them being this close in salary and that far apart from an ownership perspective. So probably a question that people may have asked here, but I'm with you. Giannis is just in such a smash spot that it's hard to get away from that. We're projecting Murray in. Aaron Gordon is also questionable. Like I said, Bruce Brown questionable. That might open some things up. It's just a matter of when we find out, because it's a 9 p.m. tip. And then you've got the first, 1, 2, 3, got 3 games at 7:30 or earlier. You got 3 games at 8:30 or earlier. We might not know until 6 games or so have already tipped.
Definitely. Yeah, this is going to be a tricky one because that first game has a lot of great plays. You're probably not going to have a ton of lineup spots open in these later games unless you really plan ahead. So I do feel like Jokic would benefit if Gordon or some combination of Gordon, Murray, and Brown will be out. I don't think you get more minutes, but you should get more assists and usage. So you could bump up Jokic's projection a tiny bit to account for that. I think that'd be a pretty reasonable thing to do.
Who would you bump up? I know if Jamal Murray is out, what do you do with the backcourt, knowing that we already have so much value everywhere else on this slate?
The last game we saw Bones Highland and Ish Smith pretty much split the minutes at point guard, so we'd have to expect that again. Bones Highland is quite expensive tonight, so I don't think this is something you really need to plan ahead for. Like if he did get 30 minutes instead of 20, I think he'd be a good play, but he'd probably be like a top 15 play on the slate instead of, a top play on the slate. So that's a big difference as far as how you want to play the late swap.
And if all of these guys are in, is there any interest anywhere?
No, probably not. Like, it doesn't look like the value here is particularly good.
All right. Talking Portland against the Golden State Warriors. They're 1.5 point favorites. And by the way, if you guys are looking to get all of these tools, it's 3 free days for all of our NBA tools. Links in the chat, in the description. Tyler can throw it in there. Unlike football, where you have to be meticulous about what day you're choosing that free trial to be able to get everything out of it, it's not the same with basketball because there's basketball every day of the week. So no matter when you choose this, you're getting the boom bust tool, the ownership projections, the player projections, our brand new lineup generator, which is absolutely sick, the lineup builder, all of our data, all of our tools, everything, 3 days entirely free. And if you do it, like, let's say you do it tonight, you're actually still getting, so what's today? Friday. You'd actually be getting it through Monday because it expires the midnight of like the third actual day. So it wouldn't even really include today. So you're getting basically 4 days if you were to do something like this of basketball, all of our tools. And that's everything entirely free. If you hate it, you can bounce. There are no strings attached. And if you love it, you can stick around and we'd love to have you become part of the community. But every tool we've got for basketball, you're going to get it for, if you do it, it's 4 slates essentially that you're getting all of our tools for entirely free. No better way to dip your toes in the water and test out these tools with no risk to yourself. So links in the description and it's in chat. I'll also in a second, before we close the show, I'll tell you how you can get 2 free months of all of our content for every single sport. If you're interested in that, we'll get there. But first, let's talk about Portland Trailblazers, 1.5 point favorites on the road against the Warriors, 233 total. How does Lillard slot in for you among the high-priced options tonight? He's not crazy expensive. And I think it's also entirely reasonable that you could play lineups with, and we know like Giannis and Damian Lillard without too much of an issue, given some of the value that we already have.
Yeah, definitely. I wouldn't go out of my way to get Lillard, but spending up at point guard to give you a little bit of a unique build because everyone is going to be spending up on Giannis and he's power forward and center. So I do think Lillard seems like an interesting alternative. The real thing I'm looking at here is Nurkic being questionable. If he was out, then Drew Eubanks could see, 28, 30 minutes, and that would be pretty dangerous at 3,400 on DraftKings. So I think this one's tough because Nurkic he was probable, downgraded, questionable at like 1 p.m. And then like, I don't really have much, I can't think of many times when someone's probable, then questionable. So I don't have a huge base to go on, but I feel like that would make me think he's more likely to play than to sit. But what do you think?
The downgrades scare me. Like whenever I see a guy go from out to questionable or doubtful to questionable, I'm usually pretty confident that he's going to play because, the only thing that means is, hey, I feel a whole lot better than I did when the initial injury report came out. With this one though, damn, I don't know. It was what around, it was like you said, it was midday, downgraded from questionable from probable to questionable. I have some concerns there. I don't know how actionable any of it is. Nurkic is one of those guys too, where he can blow a slate up for you in either direction. Like if you have Jokic, and he drops, what was it, 67 like he did last game, because he's a good facilitating big man. He's a great rebounder. He's a solid enough scorer. And then there's other times where he fouls out in 20 minutes. So he's one of the toughest guys to get right. When you do get it right, it's great. But coming into this one with a calf injury, downgraded to questionable, I'm a little worried. So what if he doesn't play?
Yeah, I mean, I think that you'd really want Eubanks in that case because he's going to be low owned, and I think he's going to be a very good value. So I do think it's worth. I don't know how to play this because you're going to have like 2 or 3 players in these late games to really make the swap.
That's why I said I'm not sure how actionable it is at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of maybe would give a bump to late players. Just in any slate, you have the advantage of being able to potentially move up due to injuries, but I don't really have a plan yet for how I'd approach this.
Okay.
We did get news that Fred VanVleet and Precious Achiuwa are out tonight, so
let's circle back to that after we close this game out.
Okay.
It makes sense because that's a pretty big piece of news there. We talked about Siakam. I'm interested to see what you think that does for Siakam and everybody else. But let's talk. Well, anybody else for Portland though? Like Josh Hart, 5,800. Anthony Simons getting around 10%. Jeremy Grant you're going to see him scattered throughout some lineups tonight. And then again, we have Nurkic around 2%, but we really have no clue of his status right now.
Yeah, I think not a ton of interest in Portland guys aside. I think Nurkic is a reasonable play if he does play. So maybe you could pick Nurkic and another player in the late games and then swap to Eubanks and then spend up at the other spot maybe. That's the kind of strategy where it's tough to work out the math, but if you can pull it off, it will really pay off in the long run.
And you're only trying to do that though if you already like your first combination, right? You don't want to do that as just like a straight hedge, because otherwise just fade this situation entirely, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough with these late slate guys because sometimes your lineup doesn't have any way to take advantage of the news. So this very well could come out, after 7 of the 9 games lock, and then you really have to plan ahead if you're going to take advantage.
If you are doing that though, make sure the non-Nurkic player that you're throwing in your lineup is in the utility spot. Make sure he's not in the small forward spot, and then you're insanely limited as to what your pivots are. That's all. And if you're playing 2 centers and one of them's Nurkic, definitely if you're hand building, make sure that Nurkic is in that utility spot. Give yourself as many outs as possible. I mean, I think that's viable. There's enough good center plays, right? Where if you just throw Nurkic down there, I don't know.
I mean, the whole idea is Nurkic could be a good play if he does play.
That's what I'm saying.
Eubanks is an even better play,
right,
if he doesn't play. So I think it's really you're hoping for the second, but the first option isn't terrible.
Right. Yeah, and you're not trying to just 1-for-1 give up 3,300 in salary to get to Eubanks in the event that Nurkic is out. All right, let's talk about the Warriors on the other side. No Andrew Wiggins still, and JaMychal Green, for whatever that's worth, he's out. But yeah, still no Andrew Wiggins. We know Curry's going to continue to be sidelined for a pretty long stretch here. Klay Thompson has eclipsed $7,000. How do you feel about that?
I mean, I don't really feel anything about it, to be honest. But Klay Thompson is a good player. Obviously, as guys get older, not quite as good, but he looks like a solid play tonight. Steph being out, Andrew Wiggins being out, he should play a lot of minutes, and he's a good shooter. So it'd be more of a night slate play, but I guess you could play him.
Okay. Yeah, I was just surprised he was getting double-digit ownership here. I totally understand. The minutes that he's played over the last couple of games is what's most significant. But yeah, he's a volatile player. The rebounds are going to come and go. He's got 25 rebounds over his last 4 games. You're not going to benefit as a passer. Adam mentioned this a couple shows ago when we were talking about it, that like Steph Curry being out doesn't help Clay as much as you think it would. It doesn't really help Dre at all. We always used to think that you remember back in the day, like, oh, Curry's out. Dre's going to have a huge game as a playmaker and everything. And it's like, well, it hurts when, one of the best scorers in the history of the game is off the floor today. And, you can definitely move some of that usage over to Jordan Poole. But yeah, Wiggins being out too, I guess, is significant enough. But look, Poole's above 8K. None of these guys are particularly cheap. It's not like any of them aren't priced for Curry and Wiggins already being out. Makes them a little bit tougher to get to.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think it's not that Clay doesn't benefit with these guys out, but it's like Poole is a very high usage player that they'll get more minutes when Curry's out. The Draymond assists, like they probably go up a little bit, but Curry doesn't actually get as many assists as you might expect being a point guard. So yeah, all in all, this game doesn't look like a great one in the full slate.
All right. And yeah, for what it's worth, I'm not saying Clay doesn't benefit. I'm just saying he doesn't become your point guard. Like he's not bringing the ball up on every possession. So, he relies heavily on his shots going in. And when they don't, it's going to be tough at that salary. Anyway, let's go back to the Toronto Raptors. How do you want to attack this now that Fred VanVleet is out and Chua remains out?
Well, Pascal Siakam's projection went up a couple of points due to more assists. I think that's one option. He doesn't look like a great value though. So Gary Trent, I think, could see more minutes with VanVleet out. And then Flynn, I think he should suck up some minutes, but it's just like he's not the min price. So I'm not really seeing a ton here.
I just saw that you DM'd me that I skipped Atlanta. Next time, just call me out on the show, man.
Yeah, I'm trying to be nice here, so
no, I don't want you to be nice. Just call me out. It's all good. $2 super chat before we get to this last one. Utility spot 10.2K left on DraftKings. Who do you guys like? So 10.2 in the utility.
I mean, LeBron James. That's easy answer. Or Siakam, if you have a very chalky lineup, I guess he could be a pivot.
Yeah, that's not a bad spot to be with your utility at all. Corey Randall, thanks, man. Utility spot, DraftKings, final 4K, Malachi Flynn or Austin Reeves. I mean, it's got to be Flynn now.
No? Yeah, I mean, Flynn's definitely someone that's not crazy to play. I don't know if he gets the minutes that you really would be hoping for. Austin Reeves, I don't think I like either one a ton. So,
metaphorical gun to your head. Who are you going with?
I guess Flynn, just because we don't know quite as well what's going to happen.
Okay, I think that's a fair enough response.
I'm just glad that no one puts the actual gun to your head in DFS.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen the movie Couples Retreat with Vince Vaughn and Jon Favreau?
How does this relate to DFS?
Because that's where the metaphorical gun to the headline comes in.
Oh, really?
Yeah, man. You got some brushing up to do, man. What?
Well, dude, there's NBA slates every day. How are you going to have time to watch movies like that?
I'm going to make a list. I'm going to give it to you during All-Star break. All right?
All right.
Tell your wife you're busy. And we'll make it happen. But anyway,
can we just agree on the movies that we're going to reference like ahead of the season?
Yeah, that'll make it flow a whole lot better. Where are we at? Bobby, pivot to Barnes at 6,300 over Nurkic at the same price. I mean, at this point with the uncertainty surrounding Nurkic, do you think that's the play to just go to Barnes over Nurkic?
If I kind of like that.
Oh, Alex, he meant 6:30. I'm sorry. I was reading the transcript of this. He meant 6:30, I guess, PM. I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, I think I still kind of like Nurkic if you have the room to swap. Otherwise, Barnes.
Okay. And last one, Fresca. I know there's infinite value. We already had that one, Tyler. We already got that one. We're good, though. We're good. All right. Let's hit on this last game. Turn this one over. What's that?
Hunter's out, but I also looked like guys on live before I can handle it.
Yeah. Trae Young's a game time decision now, though.
Well, I'm sure if Greg's on the show, he'll have a lot to say about that.
Yes, he will. And he is on the show with EMac
Nice.
coming up after this. All right. Hey, I did mention that if you guys wanted 2 free months of everything, $240 value, and you're being like, you've seen everything, you go, I'd love to use these tools, but I don't play enough right now to justify it. You don't need to. All you need is $10 and 2 minutes of your time with the link in the description or in chat. You sign up at BetMGM. You take $10, put it on any bet, like straight bet, right? Any line, any money line or spread or total that you want. Doesn't matter if you win or lose. No matter what, after that bet settles, you're getting 2 free months of Stokastic plus Platinum. Every single one of our tools for every sport, not just basketball, all of them. So if you're saying I want to get my foot in the door but haven't been able to yet, well, come and check it out. You got 2 months to do so. And our hope, obviously, is you check out the tools, you join the Discord, you start winning some money, start playing some more, and say, hey, I want to stick around. I want to stick around and use these tools going forward because I've been successful. So we trust the tools enough to say, partner with BetMGM, put $10 in. And in doing so, after that bet is made, boom, 2 free months, everything on the site. We got you. Oh, and also that first bet you make up to $1,000 is risk-free. So any bet that you lose on your first bet is all reimbursed in free bets after that. Legitimate no-brainer. Link is in the chat and it's in the description. Let's wrap this one up. Talking Utah and Sacramento before we turn it over to Live Before Lock. 241.5 point total. Jazz are 3-point dogs here. We'll kick it off with Utah, Alex. I'll toss this over to you. Do we want to get to the Markkanens and the Clarksons and the Conleys today?
Man, it's too bad we can't be like FanDuel and just cut this game off the slate like they did with the Rams Chargers this week. But yeah, this one's a dud. It looks like there's not any news on the injury report. Like everyone is in. So on a 9-game slate, that's not very appealing.
No, and it's funny too, because this is the second highest total on the slate. It's 241.5. And we're looking at it and saying, yeah, there's not really that much here on this nightcap, this late night hammer. I guess the last question then would be Sacramento. Is Sacramento as unappealing to you as Utah, or can we still get to some Sabonis at 10-3? Maybe he's a pivot off some of those more popular 10K players. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, Sabonis is certainly a fine play. Not one that really has a huge advantage or disadvantage. Like the only play I'd be making in these games is saving some room to swap in case there's some big news in this Portland front court. So if I'm playing these guys in the Sacramento, Utah, it's mostly just as placeholders that if more value opens up throughout the night, you'll have the room to swap to it.
Easy enough, man. Alex Baker at Awesemo DFS on Twitter, me _D, EMac Greg coming up next. You guys have a wonderful New Year, and we'll see. Alex and I will both. Are you going to be here on New Year's Day for football?
If I'm still alive.
Why would you not be?
New Year's Eve, man.
Oh, I thought the Idaho guy was coming for you. All right. If Alex is still alive and I am still conscious, we'll be here Sunday morning breaking everything down for a 13-game NFL slate. But until then, we'll see you guys shortly. Peace.
All right, Stokastic, here we go. It's your old pal EMac coming to you. My gosh, like 3 days in a row now. It's been a lot of days here, but here I am again, joined by one Greg Ehrenberg. Greg, we were all set to do a show last week, and all of a sudden we popped up and it was Gundacker. After I'd done an afternoon show with Gundacker, I'm like, what happened? And they're like, well, you know, Greg threw the circuit breaker so he could get the night off, and then he turned it back on after he called out. So I hope you had a fun night off last Friday.
So I had last weekend, and it was not just me; it was also Ben Rossa, who lives not close.
Oh, was
to,
that the cold snap day? Yeah.
It was. So we had like 50-mile-per-hour winds that day. So actually, what happened was I recorded an NBA video, or I did the strategy show that morning. I recorded my NBA video afterwards, and it was really windy. My internet was kind of cutting in and out, and I was asked, "Could you re-record the video?" Because I guess my internet was a little choppy. So I sent it in. And the words were not matching my mouth. Everything was a little pixelated. And then I go to re-record it. And as I'm re-recording it, power goes out. And so it's like, okay, so this isn't working. And then after that, the power goes up, power comes back on, but the internet was still down and stuff was just kind of flickering. So it just wasn't in the cards that day. So that was the first. And by the way, I'd worked like 15 days in a row before then. And that was it. It's like, oh, cool. Now you just sit in the dark with candles and enjoy your day off.
Very nice. Well, hopefully you were able to swipe right, swipe left in the midst of all of that. So
not without power internet.
But your phone doesn't. You don't have phone internet? Oh,
I do, except when the power's out, you're trying to conserve the battery life.
What
those
meet
things
meet up with a nice young lady, and she'll take you in. There you go. That's how it works.
Yeah, it was cold.
All right. Well, shout outs here to a lot of the regulars. Sotex, Kickstart, Malakar, Joe Lacates. I see Hannah Bananas there. Producer Ty pulling double duty. Blitz. Who else am I missing? Israel Williams. The old iDub is in there. Jake Swells. This is going to be a good one. We've got. I'm playing on FanDuel today, so we'll see how that goes. I'm eschewing DraftKings, except I've already got my NHL lineup set over there. But it's been a bit of an adventure. I'm not as good with the bottom portion of my lineups. I had won some Santa bucks here as we were talking before the cut over there, Greg. So I'm spending the last of those today. So this should be interesting. It should be interesting. You're playing over on DK. So it's like the roles have semi-reversed because mostly I play on DK, but tonight I'm over there. And then a little bit of Yahoo as well. I was listening to the last part of the prior show where they were saying, hey, what do we do about Drew Eubanks and potentially Yusuf Nurkic got a in-day downgrade with the sore calf. He had been listed as probable, called out as probable previously in some of the quotes, and then now all of a sudden downgraded. So Drew Eubanks is out there. If you leave your last spot in your utility on Yahoo, you can do Eubanks, and if Nurkic ends up playing, you can switch to Ty Jerome. Who's playing in that game as well, and not a huge as big of a downgrade. I mean, we're projecting Ty Jerome for, I don't know, like 18 or so Yahoo points, but it's not the end of the world if you end up with him. And if you still have $12 left, then you can get to Keegan Murray from Sacramento. So there's a few pivots down around there. I think I'll just skip this first game, Greg, and then just ease into the 7:30 games with my lineups. Is that a savvy idea? Probably not.
So the way that this slate is going, you are going to usually, we're talking about the reasons to late swap today. I mean, fuck all that. You got to load up on the Orlando Magic, because if you look at this Orlando roster team today, and talked about this earlier in the day on the strategy show I did with Terry, this is such an unavoidable situation because so many players have been suspended from the Orlando Magic that they actually had to grant an exemption, let players play through the suspension, and then end up serving their suspension the next game, because else they wouldn't have had enough players active to field the team tonight, because Jalen Suggs, Wendell Carter Jr., Gary Harris, RJ Hampton, Mo Bamba, Cole Anthony, Jonathan Isaac, Chumo Kiki, Mo Wagner are all out today for the Orlando Magic, leaving them with just an 8-man rotation. And of those 8, Bobo, Markelle Fultz, Franz Wagner, Paulo Banchero are going to play massive, massive minutes, in my opinion. And then just the scraps be left to Terrence Ross, Kevon Harris, Admiral Schofield, Caleb Houston. But it is really difficult to go away from Banchero, Wagner, Fultz, and Bobo tonight.
Where do you think Fultz's minutes are going to land? tonight. He's generally plays in the upper 20s. We have seen a couple games where he's been in the low 30s. My guess is somewhere in that 32, 34 range. It looks like that's where the Stokastic projections have him as well. It just makes sense that if anybody's not going to be run into the ground, it's going to be him. They do have Admiral Schofield in a Remember Me. No, literally, does anybody remember me from the Wizards on the team? But they're a little thin on the backcourt. But I just don't see, with all the injuries and such that have happened with Fultz, why there's any reason to overexert him in yet another lost season here. And then, Wagner can do some secondary ball handling, and they've got enough of those scrub-a-dubs that I think they'll be able to limp along through this. But how are you feeling about that? Do you even want to touch any of the people that aren't in their starting lineup? I guess is the other question. And then what percentage are you going with the players, and are you setting any caps? Those are going to be the next 8 questions that come in YouTube.
Okay. So we should probably address these one by one.
I can feed them to you one at a time if you would.
Yeah. So for one, I have lineups built out right now, but who knows if these are going to end up being final or not, because obviously still a lot of injury news that we're waiting on. But at least as of now, I mean, I don't think you have to be too concerned about playing too many Magic players in your lineup. I have lineups that have 4 Magic players. I have a bunch of lineups that have 4 Magic players. As for the bench guys, if you guys are only playing a lineup, 2 lineups, I don't think you have to be all that concerned with the guys like Admiral Schofield and Caleb Houston. But if you guys are somebody who's max entering tournaments, I think they warrant some kind of consideration. But if you're just getting to a ton of Fultz, Wagner, Banchero, Bol, I have no issue with that. Bol in particular, his price point at 4,800, and Fultz is also at 6,000. So if I have to rank them, it's going to be Bol for DraftKings to start. Bol 1, Franz Wagner and Markel Fultz are like 2-1, like 2A, 2B, and then it would be Banchero 3. For FanDuel purposes, it is currently Fultz 1 for me, Wagner 2, Banchero 3, Bol 4. Let me know if I'm missing any parts of your series of questions, EMac.
What are you, Mac? How many of these would you let get to 100%? That's the questions that are coming in. Would you go 90%, 70%?
Sure. So I'm playing 20 lineups on DraftKings, and it looks like as of now, I would have Bol in all of my lineups, and then Wagner and Fultz close to that, Banchero closer to half of the lineups. FanDuel, where I'm not entering lineups on FanDuel just because I thought this could be a lot to manage today. I got to Wagner and Fultz in about half my lineups, and then closer to 30% on Banchero and Bol over the course of 150. And the other thing too, you would ask me about Fultz's minutes. He's the only point guard on the team. They don't have another one. Last week he had a game where he played 30. He had a game where he played 33 minutes a week and a half ago. I think it's perfectly reasonable. I think Fultz plays like 38 minutes tonight.
38. Okay.
They don't have another point guard on the entire team.
Yeah. So I'm surprised. So now here comes the next one. I'm surprised you're not going higher than that percentage on FanDuel. Like I figured you'd be around 70% with most of these guys. So
for FanDuel, the main difference between these guys on FanDuel is compared to DraftKings.
Is it the Bol cost?
They're all more expensive for starters. Like Banchero is $8,500 on FanDuel as compared to $7,800 on DraftKings. Bol is $6,500 as opposed to $4,800, and he's only center eligible on FanDuel. So that's really what a lot of the issue is it's just positional restrictions.
Okay.
And the price is being more expensive on FanDuel than DraftKings. I mean, you got Fultz at $6,800 on FanDuel as compared to $6,000 on DK. Still one of the top plays on the slate easily, but I do think he's a stronger play on DraftKings than FanDuel.
Okay. All right. I think that's going to hit most of these. They're not happy how you're pronouncing Admiral Schofield's name. There's kind of
I don't even think I said his name yet.
I thought you said Schofield. Admiral Schofield.
Did I? I didn't say his name. Admiral Schofield.
There we go. Yes, I do have positional restrictions. That is true. Did somebody find my my OnlyFans account? We'll see. All right.
What kind of content do you put up there?
DFS content.
DFS content.
Gundacker told me this is hilarious. After our last show, he told me when OnlyFans. Yeah, I just call it Fans Only. When that came out, he thought it was just another streaming platform, so he was going to set up a Gundacker account on there. And then he read the fine print, and I said, "Oh, you really should have." Like, can you just see him there with the same background, his hat on, no shirt, doing?
Yeah, what if you make in OnlyFans you play a different instrument every day for the people?
Well, that I must not respond.
I mean, like, what instrument? Like, I'm sure you could play the kazoo, you could play the clarinet.
I'm
various types of flutes.
I'm a didgeridoo on my OnlyFans, Greg.
Yeah, didgeridoo, vuvuzela. Remember that thing?
Oh, that's a word I cannot pronounce no matter what.
Yeah.
But yes, a nice droning on sound. All righty. So we've got that's the big news. We, of course, are going to stay on here. Oh, there. There. Gundacker was there. Yeah. Oh, yeah. He said he thought it was just like Patreon, basically, but with video. So there we are. Let's see. We've got give us a like and a subscribe. That's a key thing. We got 100 subscribers in the last 24 hours. That's pretty cool. Barely 500 likes right now. Come on, Laffy asked for 500 likes. We 3,000 people watching. Let's get that up to 700. Come on, that'll make us all happy as we wrap up the year. If you want to get in on Little Stokastic for free, you can get in on the Stokastic Hall of Fame. All you got to do is go to stokastic.com/avatar, download the avatar, upload that onto your favorite DFS sites, place in the top 3. That's first, second, or third, excluding ties. 3-way tie for first will count, but or a 2-way tie for second. One person in first will count, but you got to leave the actual top 3 in a contest with over 5,000 people, and you will get 30 free days of Stokastic Platinum, and you'll also get a shout out on the weekly Hall of Fame segment. You can send all tweets to celebrate your wins to Stokastic HOF. We love to share tweets about victories, because they're large or small. It's fun. It's a cold, cruel world out there, Greg. We like to have some fun there. Or for those of you who haven't gotten into Stokastic yet, new users going through the link below us here in the YouTube description can get 3 free days of NBA access. You get the player projections, the ownership projections, the 1v1 tool, the lineup generator, the boom bust tool, all that stuff in there. You get into this Discord as well. Get everything to try out for 3 days. It's a lot of fun. Jump on in. It's a good time over here at Stokastic. All righty, let's see. I see we got a super chat, so let me see if I can get back to that. Teddy Wayman says, thoughts on Markkanen tonight playing on FanDuel? And he says, thanks, appreciate all the hard work you guys put in, and Happy New Year. So how are you feeling about Markkanen, the finisher over there on FanDuel?
Well, it would be useful if my computer didn't freeze while I was trying to swap between my DraftKings and FanDuel lineups. But off the top of my head, and a lot of people were asking about Markkanen this morning when I was doing the strategy show. And I get why. He's had a bunch of fairly significant games as of late. We've seen Markkanen go off for some big fantasy point games. And the other thing as well is the total in this game is crazy high. 242 points is the current total for the Kings Jazz game. But here's the issue that I have with Lauri Markkanen today is there's a lot of power forwards to get to. And Markkanen is fairly expensive now as well, which comes with him playing some big games as of late. So Markkanen is $8,400 on FanDuel. And you've got Kyle Kuzma without Bradley Beal at $8,300, so I've projected slightly better. You've also got Paulo Banchero at $8,500 with all those players who are out for the Magic that we talked about before, so I have him projected better. Kristaps Porzingis going up against the Magic, so the Magic shorthanded, and Porzingis is playing without Beal, so I have him projected better. And then as far as pay-up options go at power forward on FanDuel, you've got Siakam, you've got Giannis, you've got LeBron. It's hard for me to really make a case for Markkanen being a priority play. If you were playing a handful of lineups and he popped up in a couple of them or a spot here or there, I wouldn't have an issue with it. But he's not somebody I'd play in single entry tonight on FanDuel, and I would not prioritize him either.
All right. So we just got news. Patrick Williams in, Kobe White in, Derek Jones out. How are you feeling about Pat Connaughton? He's still a low price. He's had one good game in his last 3. Can you turn to him? Do you feel Javon Carter is coming up as a very popular play as a near minimum point guard there? We know that Drew Holiday, of course, is out. for the second straight game. Chris Middleton's missing game number, I think it's his 15 at this point. And more importantly, George Hill dealing with an illness. That's kind of opening things up there for Carter to maybe get more ball handling and usage. The minutes have kind of been there for him, but he defers a lot when he's out there. Are you feeling okay about Javon Carter tonight? And Connaughton are the two names coming up.
So it is nice that George Hill is out today, but at the same time too, you look at those minutes, what they did last game, and it's not very encouraging because they played a game against the Chicago Bulls that went to overtime, by the way. So this isn't overtime. There was extra opportunity for minutes. And here's how the playing time was allocated. Carter played 25 minutes. Connaughton played 21. We got 19 out of Joe Ingles, 31 minutes from Wes Matthews, 31 from Grayson Allen. There's 28 minutes from George Hill that need to be allocated elsewhere. So, some of them figure to go to Javon Carter, but even if you give him 30 minutes, it's not like he projects all that well because he's not a great pointsman and fantasy producer. So this is another guy who, because of his price point, if you're getting some exposure to him in large field tournaments, it's fine. I have him in right around 10% of lineups. So two in the initial run of the day, got him in 2 out of 20 on DraftKings. FanDuel, Javon Carter, I got to a little bit more just because he's $3,700 and the positions are a little bit different on FanDuel as well. So I find him to be a stronger play on FanDuel than he is on DraftKings. Also, the magic value is not as predominant on FanDuel as it is on DraftKings. So I don't know what site people are asking about it in particular, but Carter and Connaughton are better plays to me on FanDuel than they are on DK. And DK, they're just other players that I prefer to get to.
All right. Let's send a note here to producer Tyler. Let me see here. A couple other questions on that. Oh, super chat here. Devin, let me look for yours and see if we can find it. John Bryant writes in and says, hey, what do you think about Saddiq Bey on tonight's DraftKings slate? You guys rock. That would be the other portion of the suspensions coming down. We have, why am I blanking on his name right? Killian Hayes. Is going to have a 3-game suspension. Moritz Wagner has a 2-game suspension, and then everybody else that's involved is going to have a 1-gamer. So how are you feeling about Saddiq Bey? Also, Alec Burks is popping up in a lot of people's chats as well.
Yeah, so Saddiq Bey is a very good looking value play, especially on DraftKings at $4,300. And it's funny because if you watch that game and the way the fight went down, the clear worst actor in the situation is Killian Hayes. But because of the Magic's reaction to what Killian Hayes did, the Magic are hurt way more from a suspension standpoint than the Pistons are, because you just got the one player, Killian Hayes, who's out 3 games for the Pistons, while the Magic had 75% of their active players facing a suspension because of what went down. But the guy who appears should be benefiting the most is going to be Saddiq Bey, because Bey was somebody who got off to a really good start to the season. And he was somebody who was a really important part of the Pistons rotation. He was a really good fantasy producer for them. And then he just kind of slowly started to fade from the rotation as the season went on. They started to favor other players. But then last game, Killian Hayes suspended. We saw Saddiq Bey gets ejected early in that game. Saddiq Bey ends up playing 35 minutes and took on a much bigger playing time role as a result of that. He's probably not going to play 35 minutes again, but it does stand to reason he's going to see an increase in playing time.
All right, a few super chats here. We'll catch up on these. This is a random one, but this came during the crossover. Molity X Gucci God says, can you say Trevo sucks?
What?
Trevo sucks. He would like us to say that. So there we go with that one. Maybe he's mad at one of his friends. Picture on Adam's wall says, do you expect our Rubens to be low owned if we don't get that news until late? I'm worried about being too chalky with my teams with 4 Magic, Reed, and Giannis.
Let me find that question. There was a lot going on there.
I'll DM it to you. I'm putting it in the Zoom chat. There you go.
Yeah. I'm just looking to see if I could scroll up to find it. Here we go. Do you expect a Rubens?
Oh, I bet it's Eubanks.
Oh, okay. That's what I was confused. By the way, that's what I was confused by. I just didn't know who a Rubens was supposed to be.
No, so I was throwing it to you. I'm trying to think of who I played 2 Spurs people. I had no idea who they were because I screwed up my late swap yesterday on FanDuel. I wondered if it was a player like that, like a 10th man that would pop up.
Yeah. So, okay. So if Eubanks, if we don't get news about Nurkic until much later on, assuming, by the way, that we are, I don't know how we were able to parse and find that Rubens was supposed to be Eubanks, but
because he put it back in the chat.
Oh, okay. So
it occurred to me that I was trying to think of a late player, but I saw it in chat too.
Yeah, Eubanks is not going to be very popular if Nurkic is ruled out after lock, especially because, and rightfully so much of us are going to be playing Orlando Magic players.
All right, predict blowouts. I bet Orlando beats the shit out of Washington. There you go. Is that the blowout we were hoping for? Is that the blowout risk everybody's talking about? We've seen enough oddball games lately that this almost feels like the bubble in some ways, Greg, in that it appears that home field or the home court doesn't particularly matter. But a lot of it, when you go in and start looking at the box scores, did the surprising upset occur because of a team getting extra free throw attempts or a free throw attempt disparity, and who made more of their 3-pointers? And you start looking at that, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, well, no wonder Golden State knocked off XYZ. They shot 40% from 3 and the other team shot 22%. That's enough to make a difference on the volume of 3-pointers that are happening these days. That's enough to make a difference.
It's also why we see so many big comebacks too. The amount of times that we'll see teams that are down, 28 points in the fourth quarter and they come back to win, or the Mavericks. Oh, Mavericks are down 9 points with 30 seconds left against the Knicks and they end up winning the game. That's also a result of the swings from threes.
All right, a couple more super chats that we've got stacked up here. So Devin Davis said, this is the first time playing cash for NBA tonight. He said, I'm assuming I put 4 or 5 Orlando guys in the lineup. Where would you go from there? Yes, it would, wherever you are on DK, you can do 5, and FanDuel you can do 4. But most likely you're going to want to max that out, at least with their starters. Then you're going to go Giannis, probably Naz Reid would be next, especially if we get that Rudy Gobert news. Do you have some pivots in there? Because otherwise, wait for it. If you're back to cash, it's a 2v2 at this point most nights.
So a lot of those guys you just need to have. Just have to have them. If you look at the ownership projections, which are always a pretty good guide for building out some DFS lineups, because kind of the inverse of when you're playing tournaments, if you're close in between 2 players, you generally want the lower owned guy. For cash games, you just want to play some of the most popular guys. So for DraftKings, you want to load up on the Magic. You want to have Alec Burks in your cash lineup as well. I can't remember if you said him or not. And then as far as pay up options go, I would play LeBron and Giannis, and then you're just playing whoever fits in with the leftover spot after that. There you go.
And this isn't being flippant. This is one of those days where it's going to sort of build itself because there's an extreme outlier with the Orlando group. If it wasn't that case, then there'd be 3 or 4 people, probably 2 on the same. We'd be looking at Bucks if the Orlando Magic situation wasn't here, or we'd be trying to figure out who we like from the Toronto backcourt with Fred VanVleet out or something along those lines. Or, maybe we'd say it's hard to go to the Wizards at this point because Beal has missed enough games and then he came back, but he's missed the last few. The other guys' prices didn't really go down, or the players you want, their salaries didn't go down. So for the Wizards side, if you don't have to play anybody against the Orlando side if you don't want to, but Kuzma, Porzingis are you're going to be your top 2 options. They see a huge increase in scoring when Beal is off. Minutes will go to Monte Morris a little bit, Denny Avdia, and Corey Kispert tend to get more of the minutes. Kispert is scoring only. Avdia is kind of boom or bust. He can put together some really good games. This is the kind of game environment that he will, but he's also content to not look for his shot. So if he's willing to be kind of the secondary guy or just fill in with whatever they need, if somebody's getting hot, he can disappear rather quickly in the box score. So that can be frustrating as well. But those would kind of be the places we would go to find the injury or suspension or illnesses or whatever, see who gets a bump from that, and then build from there. That's your quick thing. And sorry, I missed that super chat.
No. And one thing that I'll add just to to build on what you were saying, EMac, it's funny because for the Washington Wizards, there actually are a lot of slates with some of these pricing that I would really want to load up on the Wizards in cash games, especially because Porzingis randomly got power. Well, I wouldn't say randomly. He should have had power forward eligibility because the front court for the Wizards has been Porzingis and Gafford, but Porzingis is only at center eligibility on DraftKings. They added power forward eligibility to him. I love him in tournaments as a little bit of a correlation play with all the Magic value that we're going to be getting to. But for cash games, it's not necessary today because there are so many good points per dollar options.
All right, a couple more super chats here. Almost made $9.99 super chat. It says, thanks for helping me win about $1,200 last night on the FanDuel late slate.
Nice.
He'd like us to kind of rank / pick 3 from De'Aaron Fox, Sabonis, and this one just came through. It's the yellow one. You can see it. Markkanen, Dame, or try to find a way and get all 4. As much as I would go Sabonis 1, Markkanen 2, probably Dame, and then Fox. Fox can disappear from time to time. It can be frustrating. Sabonis has that hurt right hand. He's left-handed. Dame was in Oakland. He's playing Golden State. Does that have a difference? No, but it's a good matchup against Golden State as playing one of the fastest paces. So for me, Fox kind of falls out there.
All right. So let me sort by I'm going to sort by the late slate on FanDuel and Fantasy Cruncher. And then I could just look at this. Actually, here's what I could do because this is easy because I already have projections in here.
Just run a crunch.
I could just run like a quick 50 lineup crunch on FanDuel and see which players I ended up getting to the most just by sorting it by the late night. So he has asked me to pick 3: Fox, Sabonis, Markkanen, and Dame. Any way to get all 4. All right. So how I would rank them. I would want Dame 1. Fox 2.
Okay.
And then it was Sabonis came out 3, Markkanen 4. So that's my answer.
All righty. The Claw says, how are you feeling about Rui Hachimura tonight? Is he a bad play on DK? No, I don't think so at all. He does get a boost without Beal there. It's sort of a minutes trickle down. He has a good chance of being in the closing lineup or also being out there for kind of some secondary scoring. So I think he's a reasonable play. There's just a lot of good plays at this point.
Yeah, so I am rerunning some lineups right now, just with all of the news that we've gotten taken into consideration, all different ownership projections and whatnot. And Rui Hachimura, I think
Gobert is out, by the way. We just got
okay. That. So that's actually going to now everything that I just reran is totally nonsense.
So Gobert's out. Caruso is in. Kyle Anderson is available. He has missed a bunch of games.
Yes.
Javon Green is in. Kyle Anderson has not played since the 18th, so he's missed 5 games. That was the back issue.
Yeah. So this part of it isn't going to change. But Hachimura, I projected for 24.5 fantasy points. He's $4,100 on DraftKings. That certainly makes him a value play that I was getting to a second ago, but now everything is going to change because now we've got this other piece of news, which we were just talking before about players you have to have in cash games. Naz Reid is now one of them on DraftKings. So
becomes a challenge on FanDuel because he is center only as his Bol. So there's the tricky thing.
Yeah. So for FanDuel, I am going, if somebody's just, because that's a good point, EMac, because this is something people will probably ask us. Who do you prefer, Bol or Naz Reid? And to me, the answer is, it's tough. I'm still going to prefer Bol. Just because, so the reason I would be preferring Bol, though, it's mostly going to be, number one, just the lack of bodies for the Orlando Magic. And then 2, also matchup based, where Orlando has a much easier matchup against Washington, where Naz Reid still is a pretty difficult matchup against Milwaukee. But those are your top 2 center options on FanDuel now. Naz Reid, Bol. Those are the top 2. Lean towards Bol, but you can't go wrong with either of them. For DraftKings, Naz Reid now becomes an excellent value play. And something I'm a little annoyed about, I was not really planning on playing a lot of Naz Reid. as I was trying to figure out how many minutes everybody was going to play earlier in the day, I was starting to realize that one of the reasons Naz Reid was playing minutes alongside Rudy Gobert was because Kyle Anderson was out.
Yeah.
And I was starting to think like, if Kyle Anderson comes back, Naz Reid could be really popular and just not play many minutes. And now it doesn't matter because now Naz Reid is going to start and he's going to play all of the minutes possible for the Minnesota Timberwolves. And he is so underpriced on DraftKings that he's nearly impossible to avoid. The numbers for Naz Reid as a starter this year, he's made 3 starts. He's averaging 30 minutes per game in those starts and averaging over 40 fantasy points. But that includes one game where he got hurt in the second quarter, only played 12 minutes. So in the 2 games he's played to completion as the starting center, 37 minutes and 52 DraftKings points for Naz Reid and 40 minutes and 52 fantasy points. So this is another guy that you're going to have to play in cash games on DraftKings.
Yeah, we have him projected a median projection that is 7 points less than Bol, but Greg just demonstrated or showed that he can demonstrate an upside. Both Greg and Naz Reid can demonstrate upsides, apparently. Grayson Allen or Alec Burks tonight?
Burks.
Trae Young is available.
No surprise.
Taj Gibson out. Yikes. That's Corey Kispert drew the start. That's mostly a ceremonial start at this point.
Yeah, he's been starting and it's gone not particularly well. So that's not anything that's really going to change much for us. So Corey Kispert, the starts that he's had as of late, and by the way, he plays a decent amount of minutes. Here's the thing though, EMac, he stinks. So when he goes on when he goes out there, he plays a bunch of minutes. Doesn't really do all that much with it. So Kispert last game, 28 minutes, 12 fantasy points overall for the year. Kispert has made 17 starts. He's averaging 31 minutes per game in those starts, 17.31 fantasy points. So barely over half a fantasy point per minute.
He's so just as a Wizards fan, he's not good. Let's see. This is interesting. This low. Now all of a sudden I'm getting, who is my surprise guy that popped in? OG Anunoby is now coming into my runs. That wasn't happening before. Thomas Bryant, we haven't really mentioned him. Do you want to hit on the Lakers? LeBron celebrating his 38th birthday today. How are you feeling about LBJ?
I know that people love their birthday narratives. It's generally bad when somebody's turning 38 years old. But with that aside, LeBron with no Anthony Davis, and we just got another value play in Naz Reid. There are tiers to pay up options tonight. Number 1 is Giannis. Number 2 is LeBron, and then it's kind of everybody else. But those are your 2 tiers for pay up options. Giannis, the highest priority, and then LeBron coming in behind him.
Right. I'm looking. How do you feel about Alex Caruso coming back? He's going to be coming off the bench, it looks like. He has missed 9 games.
Yeah. No need to get to him today.
All right. Because he's getting some ownership here on FanDuel, surprisingly.
Really? Let me refresh this. How much ownership is he getting?
Is Trae Young playing? Well, when I'm running crunches, he's coming up.
Oh, I thought you were saying that he was like the field was playing him.
Well, let me see. I just hit refresh.
Yeah, no, he's 1% owned by the field on.
Okay, here we go. I'm just going to do that. I'm not going to play anybody that's less than 5% owned.
I mean, I wouldn't necessarily recommend that either because you can find some good contrarian plays, but I don't think there's need to play Caruso tonight.
All right. Who am I losing by doing? Here's an interesting on the fly. It doesn't. Oh, you're right. Wow, that is dangerous because then Jokic comes out, Anthony Edwards comes out, Chris Paul, Markkanen. Yeah, it's probably not the best way to do this. All right, thank you. That was good. Thank you for making me do that. I thought I had a brilliant idea here. Guess what?
No.
We're gonna leave that one on the workbench.
Yeah,
we're gonna start looking at something.
Yeah, else. I would throw that idea in the garbage, EMac.
All right. Let's see what else chat's doing. You know what? Let's talk about. We got a couple minutes here. Let's talk about BetMGM. You can get your risk-free promo up to $1,000. You can also get 2 months of Stokastic Platinum for free All you got to do is be logged into your Stokastic account. You do not have to have an active subscription, but when you're in your Stokastic account, if you click on the BetMGM page, you can get there through the link on our chat or in the YouTube description below us, or you can go through the promo page on Stokastic. You click through that link, it's going to assign the Stokastic code to you when you go create your account at BetMGM. All you got to do, deposit $10, play through it. Once that bet settles, you're going to get a coupon code that will give you 2 free months of Stokastic Platinum. The risk-free $1,000 bet. Your first bet is risk-free. It can be up to $1,000. It can be a $10 risk-free bet. It can be a $100 risk-free bet. It can be up to $1,000. If you lose said bet, you will basically get, they'll divide whatever the loss is by 4, give you those as tickets that expire in a week, plus whatever the remainder is. So if you had a weird number, I don't know, 77, that's a bad number to pick, but divided it by 4, you'd get like, I can't do the math, like 4 $17 tickets and then another ticket that is the remainder. And you'd get a week to use those and you'd have to select them out of your account. I lost my $1,000 free bet. I got 5 $200 bets, went through and played them. That was fun. Clawed some of it back. Got to use a Greg Ehrenberg recommendation, got to use an Eric Lindquist recommendation because we're going through the Discord here, the Bet Pro Discord. It's a lot of fun. All righty. Here's another super chat. Who are the 2 bums of the night?
EMac and Greg.
I just gonna say excluding us. I think he means of the DFS. Well, no, we're in the DFS of the NBA world.
Who are I guess? What are we categorizing bums as?
Admiral Schofield, Corey Kispert.
Yeah,
disappointing players, like a Javon Carter, a Denny Abdia, someone that we put a little emphasis behind, and that then they break our heart.
It has to be somebody who's picking up ownership though, right? Because I mean, I could just say, whatever idiots on the end of some bench that nobody's playing. But in terms of, let me look at, do we have an updated, let me make sure we get an updated ownership for Naz Reid, because it's going to come in a couple of minutes. Can we circle back on this, EMac, when we get the updated ownership for Naz Reid, and then we could figure out who we think are the most overowned players on the slate? Because it's a little hard to know until we have the Naz Reid ownership, and that's going to be in like a couple of minutes.
Is it crazy to like Sabonis more than LeBron? That is from Zachary Pinnell.
From a projection standpoint, I think LeBron should be projected higher. If it's just playing Sabonis and a lot of instead of LeBron, that's not crazy. If it's a cash game, yes, it's crazy.
We are sponsored tonight by No House Advantage, Overlay Brewing once again there. They also have live versus the house contest, but in their GPP tournaments, $15,000 prize pool, $5,000 to first place, $15 entry fee. It looks like that's going to get to maybe 60% full. That's a fun way to check that out. We have some free projections for both game formats over there. We'll talk about those. We'll settle in a little more on them over the last 30 minutes. But reminder, Overlay is the key, and they are giving it out. That's a very nice way to boost your bankroll. You still have to monetize things, but essentially they're paying out more than what is coming into the prize pool. It's a player prop game. Tonight you will pick 10 different player props among about 200. You'll rank them with confidence points. As you get those correct, those points become yours. That's how you score against the peer-to-peer game. We'll talk about the versus the house in a moment, because my filler art comes in and says, oh, I should have. All right. My filler art just for you. And since I'm filling it probably for Eric, I'm just going to read this without reading it all the way through, Greg. So if we get in trouble, Eric serves my HR suspension. I just want to be clear on this.
All right. Yeah. As long as you keep your clothes on, which Eric doesn't always do, you should be okay.
He doesn't always do. He does share the same birthday with LeBron, which is impressive, but Eric's much older than 38.
Yeah, considerably.
I wish that Ted Cruz, the Ted Cruz Zodiac Killer mofo, would get traded to a team where Bobby Portis is not his teammate, and then try this crap. Speaking of that game, would you? I love how he filters it back. Hey, by the way, separate question: would you captain Anthony Edwards or Naz Reid in Showdown?
I haven't built out Showdown lineup, so probably Naz Reid.
I think it would be Naz Reid as well.
I actually think more likely the answer would be Giannis. But if it's just Naz Reid or Edwards, Naz Reid.
I like to play on those showdowns. I like to play 4 different lineups and use 4 different captains. And then usually the best plays do end up in all 4 lineups. So it's not totally all your eggs in one basket, but usually sometimes you get one that breaks away nicely, or you get 3 that min cash. It's kind of how that works. And then sometimes none of them make it over the cash line. But that's just my showdown strategy. It's DraftKings, by the way. That's funny. Who do you hate more? No, I'm not even going to go there. We're just going to leave that one.
No. What is it?
No, I can't. Last time I got political, people got mad.
Was it a super chat though?
No, it wasn't. It's the one that's hidden right now.
Oh, okay. So we've got some questions in the Discord too that I want to answer. And then let me see if we have an ownership update for Naz Reid so that we could answer the question from Don Icewood from before. Not quite yet. If we don't have it in a couple minutes, I'll just answer Don's question. But some questions in the Discord channel. First from Talltale. Is it smart to fade Terrence Ross on DraftKings, or should I get around 10% in 150 lineups? I think that you should have a little bit more than 10%, and I wouldn't fade him either. He's of the Magic starters, he's clearly the lowest priority, and so many other value plays have opened up that I'd rather play Naz Reid. I'd rather play Alec Burks as a salary saving option than Terrence Ross. But Terrence Ross, I think, is more of like a 15 to 20% guy over the course of 150 lineups than 10%. I wouldn't fade him though. Sam Cassell Dance wants to know, would I recommend leaving a swap open to get to Bones Highland again if Murray sits? So I have a pretty strong lean that Murray is going to play today. And every once in a while when players are questionable, I'm just going to take a hard stance and say, I think this guy plays. I think this guy sits. I'm under the assumption that Jamal Murray is going to play today. So it's not really anything I'm making any kind of adjustments for. Steve G, Porzingis or Boncaro tonight. I prefer Boncaro. And all right, that answers the recent questions in Discord.
You are awesome. I did not have Discord up. Thank you very much, Greg. I appreciate that. It's interesting. As we've gotten more value, I'm getting less and less of the Orlando players as I do crunches.
I don't think that's unreasonable.
Yeah.
I mean,
and again, for perspective, those that didn't hear before, I'm just playing on FanDuel tonight, so they're a little more expensive on FanDuel.
But it's also, I mean, there's just more plays that are available, and if you want to play those guys, it just takes away from some other players. So no matter where you're playing, it's not unreasonable.
Yeah. Although I have a little too much Connaughton in my life right now. He's going to be the guy who breaks my heart if I don't play him. No, is that
going to be your bum pick from Don
Yes,
Icewood?
It's going to be I'm going with the 3-headed monster of Grayson Allen, Javon Carter.
By the way, 41 seconds ago, we just got the ownership update. So based on this information, you want to be playing Naz Reid in cash games at center, not Bol. So even though I have Bol projected a little bit higher for myself personally, cash games, I still say play Naz Reid on FanDuel because Naz Reid is projected for 56% ownership now at center on FanDuel, which means in cash games, he's going to be like 75 to 80% owned. So you want to play Naz Reid would be your cash game center on FanDuel based on that. And Bol has become a pretty good contrarian option all of a sudden on FanDuel. Now nobody's playing Bol and everybody's playing Naz Reid. For DraftKings purposes, Naz Reid is now 75% owned, and I understand why based on his production as a starter. The most rostered players we have across both sites now. DraftKings, top 5, Naz Reid, 75%, Bol, 54%. See what happens on DraftKings, where you can play both Naz Reid and Bol. The field's playing both of them. On FanDuel, they can only play one. Field is playing Naz Reid, not playing Bol. The other most popular players on DraftKings, Alec Burks, 51%, Markelle Fultz, 47%. Terrence Ross is all the way up to 41% ownership on DraftKings. I think there's reason to get Terrence Ross. That is a lot. That's more ownership than I would like to be on him. I'm going to be undercutting that number. FanDuel, the most popular players, Naz Reid is 56%, Javon Carter, 46%, Markelle Fultz, 43%, Giannis, 39%, and Alec Burks is 34% owned.
How far over the field would you go on What are you using in your portfolios for Giannis and for LeBron? Are you trying to get over half them in over half your lineups? One
So
or the
I
other,
am
not necessarily both.
heavier on Giannis than LeBron. As a result, I'm overweight to the field on Giannis and about even with the field on LeBron. So my preference is definitely Giannis relative to ownership. And by the way, Don Icewood's question, who are the two bums of the night? I mean, I don't want to say Terrence Ross is a bum, but I'm not going to play him I'm not going to play 41% on Terrence Ross at that much of the field. That's a crazy amount of ownership for Terrence Ross, in my opinion, on a slate with a lot of value. So you could play Terrence Ross in cash. I think you should play Terrence Ross in cash games. I'm going to be undercutting that a little bit in tournaments, though. And I know that it's certainly a risky side to be on for sure, but that's where I'll be. And then let me see. Other bum of the night. Who's going to be a bum? Do you have a bum call, EMac?
No, but we're not getting to the secondary places. I close out all the Milwaukee guys is coming in as Josh Okogie is popping up. I don't feel great about that. Jose Alvarado, I don't feel great about that. I'm getting some DeLon Wright. Also, I don't feel great about that. It's kind of interesting with where the price points are here. I still think the Milwaukee ones are going to disappoint us the most.
I think the most over-owned players on each site right now on DraftKings, I think it's Markelle Fultz. I mean, not Markelle Fultz, Terrence Ross, I think is the most over-owned. I really like Markelle Fultz. So FanDuel, I think Javon Carter's is the most over-owned. DraftKings, I think Terrence Ross is the most over-owned.
All right, got another good super chat. If Nurkic ends up being out, would you rather have Banchero now or Jeremy Grant later?
Banchero now.
How many lineups are you building? Are you doing 150 or a subset?
No, DraftKings, I have 20 lineups, and then I built out lineups for FanDuel that I've been updating for the purpose of the show. But in terms of lineups I've entered, I'm only playing on DraftKings today.
Let's do that. We have 10 minutes to lock, but we are going to stay on until 7:30. So the only game locking at 7 is that Washington-Orlando game. Of course, that will entirely make or break our whole slate, regardless of what happens with the remainder of the night. But Greg and I will talk for an extra 30 minutes breaking down any of your questions. We'll talk about the no house advantage versus the house game format. We'll have some fun. We'll have some laughs. Greg will make fun of me. It'll be a good time. What else do we need to say? Can somebody win tonight without anybody from one of the two late night hammers?
Yes.
But we know it's not possible. DFS, you have to have someone from the late games.
Yeah, here's how it happens. The players in the early games score more points than the players in the late games, and it happens.
I don't think you understand how this works. PMR is worth more than actual points until it isn't.
It will be if the Orlando-Washington game is 40-30 at halftime. Although, actually, considering how many guys are out for Orlando, I think even if they score 80 points, we still might get players optimal from their team. Some more questions that we got in the Discord. First is from Swaz. He wants to know Javon Carter and Banchero or Ross and Porzingis. T. wants to know, could I rank the overall value plays for the slate? So what's hard about that is like, what price point are we considering? Just the sub 5K guys?
To be value?
Yeah. So in terms of
I think that's fair. That's encompassing enough of them.
The sub 5K guys I'm getting the most of for DraftKings, it is Naz Reid 1, Bol 2, Alec Burks 3.
I'm about to upload my lineups, Greg, and
do it.
Nikola Jokic, could he break our hearts tonight? Because he's really coming in at 1% on DK.
The problem is there's so many good centers to play today and obviously he's capable of it, but Jokic would have to have such a crazy outlier performance. It's such an uphill battle for him to be in the optimal lineup today because you need one of Bol and Naz Reid to bust kind of, right? So you need that to happen. And then you also need him to outscore LeBron. You need him to outscore Giannis. I have Giannis projected for a lot more fantasy points than everybody today, because for Giannis, there is no Drew Holiday today. There is no Chris Middleton. He has a usage rate north of 40% with those guys off the court. Did you see what the over-under is for Giannis's points at sportsbooks today, EMac?
I saw it was over 30.
It's 35.5 and juice towards the over.
Really?
It's an astronomical number. So I think it does really make a whole lot of sense to just load up on Giannis as the top pay-up option. And that's another reason why it's very unlikely to me that Jokic will be in the optimal lineup today, unless he just has one of those absolute crazy games where he's, a triple double with 20 rebounds or something like that. Because or else it's so many obstacles to clear. The really good value centers, they're going to have to not come through. The other top scoring guys who have projected better than Jokic, like Giannis, he would have to not come through. So Jokic, not for me today.
That's wild. But he has had over 40 in 3 of his last 5, I believe.
Giannis. Yeah, I'll pull that up. Also, the Black Mambo, do most of your lineups have 3 or 4 Orlando players? Yes, they do. Sam Cassell Dance, really appreciate you at Ehrenberg, Greg, and my other friends as well. I'm sure that's you included, EMac. And now,
maybe not.
XX Cubs fan 23 wants to know, my friend legalized is too shy to ask. Will you lock in Jock Landale tonight? No.
It's one thing legalized is not is shy.
I would not lock in Jock Landale tonight.
All right, I'm building 40. Does 47 lineups feel like good luck, or should I do 50? Probably should do 50, right?
Whatever your heart desires. Build 78 of one. Build 78, one for each year you've been on the earth. Got some super chats here to answer. First from Brandon Thompson. He wants to know Reed and Porzingis or Boncaro and Collins. That is Reed and Porzingis for me. Most questions that have Nas Reed in one side. If it's a 1v1, 2v2, I'm probably going to be on the Nas Reed side. Then we got Jorge Giacomi late into the party. But why Orlando players projected so high today? Who is your best pick from Orlando on DraftKings? So Jorge, the reason why is because the entire team is suspended. Nearly the entire team is suspended to the point where they had to actually allow suspended players to play today for Orlando and defer their suspension, or else they wouldn't have enough active players. So only an 8-man rotation today for the Magic. Boncaro, Wagner, Franz Wagner, I should say, Markelle Fultz, Bol, Terrence Ross, Kevon Harris, Admiral Schofield, and Caleb Houston. So we're looking at Boncaro, Wagner, Fultz, Bol, probably all playing closest to 40 minutes or so. And with that being the case, the really good value plays that are difficult to get away from.
All right, Malakar says that he's witnessing elder abuse. I know. I am under duress. Notice how I'm blinking Morse code. Help me, save me. Thank you, Malakar, for noticing. Let's see. Nas Reed projected for 56 on FanDuel at 6K. Well, Chuck Deuces, that's what it's looking like here. I've basically split it. I went 46-46 with Bol and with Reed. And then I have a little bit of Collins came in a couple lineups, and then I made sure to have 2 or 3 Jokic lineups. That was it. And I built 50. We shall see, Greg. Perhaps one of them will break free. Hank the Tank, not your biggest fan. Should I hit the life alert? I've fallen and I can't get up. Those were great commercials back in the day. Oh, Zolo Baxter says best.
By the way, we have more. We have more super chats too, EMac.
Oh yeah, that's what I was doing. Zola says best single entry on FanDuel, and then I see Brandon Thompson has one.
What's the question?
Best single entry tournament play on DraftKings.
Ooh, okay. Let's see. I mean, I could just say Nas Reed, but he's going to be 100% owned in single entry. Everybody will be there. Let's see who's somebody who's lesser owned that I think makes sense. I think you can make a pretty good case for Pascal Siakam. Siakam is shown to have considerable upside, especially in games without Fred VanVleet. And I mean, you just look at the last 5 games now for Siakam. 51, 58, 53, 76, and 68 fantasy points. From a fantasy point projection standpoint, for sure, the better option to get to are Giannis and LeBron. But I think it's possible to fit lineups in, because I know I have some of them, that have both Giannis and Siakam in them. And I think that there's clearly enough value on the slate to pay up for him. And I think he's somebody who could differentiate a single entry lineup.
Alrighty. And I think that might be it. I hope we did the Reed Porzingis versus Banchero and Collins.
Yes.
Okay. People don't like that I didn't know the Giannis points prop. Well, Gundacker and I were talking about it on the afternoon show, and I couldn't remember exactly what it was. So apologies. I knew it was over 30. That's usually where the superstars have been lately. That's where, and I like to bet the PRAs, and I look for triple double bets. I usually just don't bet straight points on someone.
Oh, sorry, there was 2 minutes left. One more super chat. We got
yes. Sorry,
Ligarian Bridger wants to know DK exposure position by position. So these are the players that I got the most exposure to. DraftKings point guards, Markelle Fultz and Alec Burks. Shooting guard, Alec Burks and Franz Wagner. Small forward, Franz Wagner and Paulo Banchero. LeBron James as well. Power forward. And power forward center, it's the same three guys, Naz Reid, Bol, Giannis, and Banchero up there as well. A lot of chalk for me, but it is super hard to get away from a lot of these chalk plays. Like, I don't know how you could look at this slate and be like, I don't want to play Giannis, or say, I don't want to play Markelle Fultz or Franz Wagner. These are just really, really good plays. Same with Naz Reid. There's going to be a lot of similar looking lineups at the top of tournaments today, in my opinion.
Yep. So I see Andy did a super chat. How do you feel about Malachi Flynn on both sides? I'm ambivalent.
He's not a fade for me, but I have him in less than 10% of lineups.
Let me look and see if he made any of mine. He did not make my lineups. Yet somehow I have 8% Jose Alvarado. That feels not optimal.
So, and once again, Malachi Flynn projects pretty well for me on just a points per dollar basis, but there are so many guys that project better. It's just the state of the slate.
All right. So now I have 90 seconds. Yes, I agree that people are not getting a bunch over 30 fantasy points for their props, but the superstars have been up there. I bet and lost the Doncic one the other day, which is how I knew that they were creeping up that high. I hadn't seen them that high before. Obviously, it didn't happen for a 60 fantasy point game, but you are correct. I like to go in the lower range. You know where I am going tonight? Colin Sexton, 11.5 is his. He is back 3 games from his hamstring issue. He has surpassed that mark in all 3. He's averaging 14.2 points per game. I'm going from memory now, but I think it's in 22 or 24 minutes per game. His per 36 is off the charts. He'll probably play around 24 minutes tonight if his minutes keep ticking up. I like that one. He tends to do more scoring than actually facilitating and rebounding, especially playing next to Mike Conley. So that one I did bet. Got that over at BetMGM. Let's do a double combo here. Have you seen the new tool, the Bet Pro tool?
Oh, you better believe I've seen it. And also to back up, because I assume he's still, one thing that always changes over the course of us doing these shows is you never know how the props have moved from the time that we started doing the show to where they are at the end of the show, where they were this afternoon. But I know that the Colin Sexton prop was grading out fairly well for us earlier in the day. So let's see, what does that look like now?
Still and he same? Was at 10.5 and first thing this morning, by the way. Not on every site.
Yeah, so what
he is at 11.5 right now. We're down to a 57% win rate on that. We are projecting him for 14.3.
Yeah. So one thing that's interesting about the Colin Sexton minutes, because I was actually talking to Lee, who's the newest guy on our projections team. You guys have probably seen his name in the DFS world. B Calicor is his DFS handle. He's helping us out with projections now. And we were talking about Colin Sexton's minutes, and it's pretty interesting because there was a really weird minutes tip for Sexton, because usually you see players come back from injury and the minutes incrementally get larger. But that was not the case for Sexton. He played his first game back from an extended absence. He played 17 minutes. Then he played 23. And logic would just kind of dictate, like, all right, 17 and 23 minutes. He's probably going to see an increase in minutes. Not the case. He ended up playing 16 minutes last game. So what happened? And this is a really dumb thing that coaches do that I don't really understand. Colin Sexton never closes games for the Jazz, but because he picked up his 4th foul at the end of the 3rd quarter and was in foul trouble, they decided, well, we can't start him at the beginning of the 4th quarter because he's in foul trouble. But what does it matter when he doesn't close the 4th quarter anyway? So he doesn't end up
in case of a double emergency, they still need him in the 4th quarter.
So what ends up happening is he doesn't start the 4th quarter, he doesn't check back in. If he plays his minutes, the stint that he typically gets at the start of the 4th quarter, then I think we would have seen him play 23, 24 minutes. But because he didn't get those minutes, we only saw him play 16. So I think his minutes go right back up to right around 24 for today. And with that in mind, I think his props are a little bit too low because it looks like he's kind of being projected, at least by sports books and some of his props. Like his assist prop is really low. His points prop is really low. I think it's because they're not giving enough minutes because they're kind of reading a little bit too much into what his minutes were last game and not why his minutes were what they were.
All right. Lakers gave us some news here. Lonnie Walker out. We have Austin Reeves and Dennis Schroeder are available. Maxey is playing for the first game in a while. No word on minutes for him. Josh Okogie did draw the start, as did AJ Griffin. Those are for the Suns and the Hawks, respectively. Grayson Allen or Pat Connaughton? That is the question of the day.
Is that the question of the day?
Or punch yourself in the face?
So, the difference is, so this is more of a DraftKings, more of a FanDuel question than DraftKings question, to be sure.
I don't like either. I'm playing both 35%.
All right. So as far as, let's see, which one did I get to more? In the dummy builds that I made for FanDuel, I did get to more of Grayson Allen. They are both really good plays on FanDuel, unfortunately. And it's a total. You look at the rotations from last game, you want nothing to do with the team. It sucks that George Hill being out would matter that much, but it kind of means you have to project those guys for more minutes because where else is the playing time going? And then you just hope Wes Matthews doesn't play north of 30 minutes again. Because that was nonsense. There's no reason for that to happen.
No, it totally is. As someone saying, "Oh, EMac lineups are different." I like it. I can't tell if these are good or bad. I'm so used to staring at DK lineups, and I know what I'm getting. I'm concerned like with Jose Alvarado, AJ Griffin. He's starting, fine, whatever. But yeah, my lineups do look a little bit different. I'm not as good on Fantasy Cruncher because I don't have all the bells and whistles set up for FanDuel. So this is an interesting exercise. It's a good reminder for me that, don't play gigantic volume as you move into new sports or different sites. Dip your toe in, right? There's nothing wrong with that. Don't have the FOMO. Maybe you'll have some lineup that breaks free anyway. You can win a lot on just a little. That works. But this is kind of a terrifying situation here. It'll be fun though. Pucker factor is high. That's what life's all about. Right, Greg? Eric went to high school with Biden. I did. He was a good time. He was a good time. Who is Crafty Lefty? I don't know.
Manu Ginobili?
Oh, he's the ultimate crafty lefty.
Yeah.
Let's see here. All right. So I want to.
By the way, is it weird that lefties seem craftier than righties? Is it just because it's different looking?
Yes, it entirely is. I remember when I was a kid in Little League and I had to face the first lefty pitch. We used to do kid pitch to each other when we were like we didn't have T-ball. It's probably not a good idea to be throwing baseballs at each other. But yeah, it was the 70s, right? It's a different world back then. It was the hardest thing facing a lefty. You're like, what how is he even doing that? It just doesn't make any sense to your kid brain.
We were me and one of my friends were talking about that recently because like professional baseball hitters are way better if you're a right-handed hitter at facing a left-handed pitcher than a right-hand pitcher. The idea being, you have better visibility of the baseball with it coming out on the far side. But for me as a kid, it was actually harder to hit lefties because you never saw it before. Like you were saying, it's just something you weren't accustomed to.
No, you were more worried about getting hit by it than anything else was my thought. But
were you afraid of getting hit by the baseball all the time, EMac?
I was a little bit until I realized I needed glasses. That was a huge.
Yep.
I didn't realize everybody couldn't see like that. So yeah, that was helpful. So when I got glasses in third grade after playing first and second grade baseball, this is a big difference maker.
Did you play baseball at any point against somebody who was a legitimately good baseball player?
No, I didn't play much beyond that.
Oh, so I mean, I didn't either. But in high school, I remember we had a kid in our town, or a kid in the town next to us, Tim Breckmuller, who ended up pitching at UNC. And he was gigantic. He was like 6'9". And then even freshman in high school, he was 6'7". He was throwing over 90 miles per hour.
Oh,
it could not have been more scared hitting. It's like, I can't hit it anyway. I want nothing to do with it. Just don't hit me by pitch. I'm going to stand here. I'm going to strike out. And that's how this is going to go. Just don't hit me. But so that was why I brought that up to ask if you'd ever faced anybody who was legitimately good.
Gotcha. No. And I think if I had started out on T-ball, I would have probably, and knowing about the glasses thing, I would have gone a little more because I really enjoyed baseball. It wasn't that fun. Jorge Acome has a $10 super chat. Best shooting guard on DraftKings. He wants to pair them with Siakam and Giannis. He has $4,000 to spend.
All right. So
4,000 shooting guard.
4,000. And let me just remove the first game of the slate because it can't be any of those guys. 4K. Who do I have projected the best? So that ends up being Javon Carter. There aren't that many the players you're choosing between are either Javon Carter or Malachi Flynn, and I have Javon Carter for 0.3 of a fantasy point more.
All right, I see someone else grew up hopefully in the 70s, because otherwise this would have been bad. So Devin says, I was afraid of getting hit by a baseball as a kid. My dad taped me to a fence and threw baseballs at me. That'd be child abuse today, but it really helped. I'm not afraid of baseballs. For me, it was so much. It was just getting hit in the face.
That's a character builder. That is a character building exercise where I'm from.
I went to a summer camp where the counselors were just terrible people and basically just spent the entire summer just beating up kids. So we used to play a game called Suicide, where we would stand against, remember wall ball? There would be those big concrete wall ball walls. So the way the game was played is you had to stand against the wall and just arms stretched out and just stay perfectly still. And they would throw dodgeballs at you, and you lose if you got hit or if you moved. That was how you lost the game. So it was terrible. There was no fun in the game.
Oh, there were winners.
It
just wasn't any of you kids.
Yeah, they just threw shit at us.
Oh God, that's hilarious. Malakar says, my brothers thought I was hitting wrong because I was a lefty, so they made me hit righty. That's kind of what happened back then. I used to write left-handed, and you get to school and they're like, no, we don't do that. I'm like, what do you mean? No, you need to. And I could write with either hand when I was a kid, and the kid next to me couldn't. So I was just like, oh, whatever. So he was lefty, right? He couldn't do it. It makes letters backwards and all that stuff. I do vividly remember that, but I remember they told you, no, you can't write with that hand.
And apparently I was not the other one. Pete Viles is in chat. Humbro, he said that they called it butts up, and he broke his left arm playing it in 6th grade. And then Fensick saying that they used to use golf balls.
Nick Barrett says also code asses up in the Bronx.
And then Chris
I'm glad I grew up on the West Coast, man. You guys were mean out here.
Chris D asked wall ball wall. Isn't it a wall? Not really. There's a specific wall made for wall ball. It was a big concrete structure.
Yeah. It was weird. But then they'd paint a line at a certain level and you practice hitting tennis balls against it. Right there. It's one of those, just like it was a generic concrete wall in the middle of the playground or near the playground. And didn't have basketball hoops on it. I'm a dying breed. I'm the last age of kid where it was just acceptable to kind of like beat up kids. Like if you were an adult, it right after me was the cutoff. Right after me, they're like, yeah, this isn't cool anymore. But I was the last one who it was okay for. If you were at a friend's house and you did something that was not okay, like your friend's dad could just hit you. Like that's not really acceptable anymore.
Greg.
Good. Here's a good story, and then we'll talk. We got 15 minutes of DFS. We'll get this, but Noah's Advantage will appreciate this story. So similar to that, we had to go out. I was at my friend's house, and we got in trouble. I'll tell you why I got in trouble in a second. We had to go out to the orchard and cut our own switches, and his mom hit us with them. So switches is you'd have to go get it, like it'd be in the spring, and it'd be like what they'd prune off the trees that had grown. So it was this like whip-like thing, and they'd be about 4 feet long, and they hurt. And so she was little, so like she was like 5'3" or something, and so we were like her size as kids. So she needed to punish us for rolling tires down a hill to see if we could get them between the cars as they were driving on the street. That probably wasn't a good idea to do. So we deserved it. But yeah, I told my parents what happened. They're like, well, good. I hope she hits you enough or something like that.
That was what Adrian Peterson got arrested for, or got charged with child abuse for. So, and this is like 10 years ago, so I might be misremembering, but yeah, I'm pretty sure the Adrian Peterson story was somebody called Child Protective Services, or maybe it was his girlfriend at the time, because he had his child got in trouble for something. The kid was like 3 or 4 years old at the time, made the kid get a switch, and he ended up beating him to the point where like the kid had like bruises and I think like cut his scrotum or something like that as well, if I remember the Adrian Peterson
All right,
story.
So we got like 3 whacks with it. We were wearing jeans, and again, she was like, we were bigger than we earned it, right? So, but yeah, I guess I shouldn't make fun of corporal punishment, but it was kind of a different thing. Like I never thought, and even when your parents were, did you screw up? And my parents didn't. They spank us when we do stupid stuff, but very rarely. But it was like, yeah, we did this, and they're like, well, you're lucky, because if she hadn't, I'd be doing it right now. I'm like, what? That's not fair. Guess what? Here it is. All right. So a couple things that we have for fun. No House Advantage has the versus the house side here. Producer Tyler, do you have BetPro access? Let's look at BetPro. So this is a new tool that we've put together here at Stokastic. I say we. I haven't. I'm a user.
Yeah, it was EMac. It was EMac specifically. EMac sits there with an abacus and he goes, 13 points for Colin Sexton, 7 rebounds for Paulo Banchero.
Yeah, the usual rule: if there's technology, I don't get to be involved. So until it's testing time, and then they want me because I'm like, I bring my own army of gremlins, and I'll find whatever screwed up. So BetPro is kind of a fun thing. We have Odd Shopper. Odd Shopper is great. I love it. But sometimes you just want to stare at the matrix or look for something real specific. So that's sort of what we're doing here with BetPro. And you'll see across the top we have all sorts of sites. So this is what do we call a premium feature. This isn't for free, but you can see across the top, you can quickly find all this stuff. Now, again, all this stuff's free on Odd Shopper. And you can find it by searching on players' names and get to it all there. It's totally fine. This is just for those that are used to seeing data in this function, like people like me, who I don't need all the bells and whistles. So if we click on No House Advantage, it's got all the versus the house props there. So if you say, hey, I know I want to bet on some LeBron James stuff, you can quickly go to your side of choice to see what is it here. But if you want to shop these lines, then Odd Shopper is the better way to do it, because here you've got to look through a bunch of screens. We're building this out, but this doesn't have all the fancy props like PRA and fantasy points, some of the other things you can get on the other side. But this is very, very helpful. It's very fast. You can quickly sort things by team. So if you're like, oh my God, DFS lineups locked at 7, I've now got 9 minutes to build out my same game parlay for the Wizards Orlando game. I want to look at this really quick. You can go over to things like this and look at it. So it's a really cool tool. It's being built out more and more. We're adding a different, the newest feature we have is it will color somebody yellow if they have a key, I think it's if they have a key person on their team.
So 2 things. There's a color code. One is and it's at the top of the page, but if a player themselves is questionable, they will be outlined. But a player will be highlighted if a player on their team who's projected for 15 or more minutes is questionable. That's just a way to indicate to people like, hey, because our projections, if a player is questionable, we generally assume that they're in. So this just makes it easy to know, hey, maybe just avoid this particular bet because the projection could be influenced by a player being questionable.
All right. But again, this is a real quick way to find some stuff. So it's something new. That we've got. Again, it's a premium feature, but it's a lot of fun. It also has what this has that like projection pages and other stuff doesn't have. It is the expected value, is the essentially real time. I think it happens every few seconds Let's see. Okay. Sportsbooks lines are updated every 2 or 3 minutes. Last projection update was 40 seconds ago. So it's constantly updating. Whereas a lot of times our other stuff is only updating when we're updating DFS things into it because they're not attached to the sportsbooks. This is blending all of that. Again, OddsShopper feeds real time on all the sportsbook data. This is just another way to look at it in an easier way to sort it, right? Because you can do your what is the SBet thing? So this is the version of the Kelly criterion. I was trying to read all of these different things up here. So when you're looking at sports wagering, it's important to remember, you hear people talking about units and this, that, and the other thing. It seems pretentious. It is pretentious. But what they're saying is theoretically, you should wager a very similar amount each time. So when am I going above or below, how much above or below. The Kelly criterion sort of works and most people say, oh, well, that's where you double up every time until you win it. That's part of it. But it also helps you right size, tell me if I'm doing this wrong, it helps you right size your bets based upon what you're doing for the units. Plus it takes into account the probability as well as the expected ROI. So it's like another barometer and measurement there. It doesn't, if it's high or low or you don't understand it, that's okay. You don't have to utilize that. But that was something I was trying to educate myself on earlier today and figure out exactly what that meant. I think I've captured that correctly.
Yeah, no, totally makes sense.
What else do we have? And then the EV that's just the expected value. That just means it's another way to kind of look at potential ROI. I think but it's more based on the decision and than the actual dollar amount. So it's the caveman explanation is that's your expected ROI on it, or your potential, because again, things can go sideways and you get zero. But that is another way to analyze and say, oh wow, I didn't think this Christian Coloco one was going to be great. Oh, wait a second. It's got a 15% expected value. That's double most or triple a lot of the things on the screen. Oh, but that's because we're getting plus 115 on it versus like minus 30 or whatever. But this helps you sort the best bets out there and culls through all of them. And that's something that's harder to do on the other formats.
By the way, some early results from the basketball game. Super early. We are a few minutes into the Orlando-Washington game. Big start for Bol. 6 points and a steal for Bol. 2 points and an assist for Markelle Fultz. And then we've got Fultz actually just hit a 3. So 5 points, an assist, and a rebound now for Fultz. So Bol and Fultz are both off to big starts. Terrence Ross is not doing shit. Franz Wagner has a rebound and an assist. And then we've got Boncaro with a rebound and an assist. And then on the other side of the game, Porzingis, who is just going to be facing very minimal resistance this game. 5 points, 2 blocks, and assist and a rebound in 5 minutes for him.
Nice. All right, I'm going to drop this into chat. This is for those that are playing on No House Advantage, right? So we'll talk about versus the house. We have free projections for all their game formats. So we've consolidated things down into one nice page. So I dropped the link into there, but you can get it from Stokastic. Go to the drop down of basketball, scroll down to the free basketball, and then pick No House Advantage. So on the left tab, that's the one we're going to focus on now. That's versus the house. That's their dynamic props. Those are constantly moving. The middle tab, that's pick 'em. These are going to look like great values. That's because this is their static props that are out there. It's like their salary for their contest. So their contest is locked for now, but just know you have that. And then the third tab is optimal lineups. Based upon everything that's going to happen, the probabilities and all of that, we build out what the best lineups are for you. Build out a couple hundred of them. If you're just, feeling like you want to pick one of those and use that, that's an easy way to do it from there. Don't pick the first few would be the advice, or switch the order of a couple of them, because that could be what other people grab. The way these math out, you can go down 100 or 200 and lose only about like 0.5 to 1% of expected value for the overall set of projections. So they're moving incrementally. It's just why tie if you don't have to. But the versus the house prop, we've got a couple here now. Versus the house. So when we do the peer-to-peer game, you're going to look at 80-70% win rates, sometimes 90. Sports wagering, anything over 63 is probably a good bet. Because you don't see that many. Now in No House Advantage, of course, they don't have the VIG in there per se. It's a straight bet. So anything that has a lot of things like points is going to be a lot closer to the actual line. You can get perceived value if we're looking at rebounds because they're less occurring, or 3-point attempts because they don't occur as often. So that's just the heads up there. So Greg, birthday boy LeBron James, rebounds going against the Atlanta Hawks. No Clint Capella, no Anthony Davis on his own side. The actual line is 7.5. We have him for 8.9. That's a 66% success rate. That feels like a good bet.
Which are you looking at? The
no house versus the house props on the Stokastic page.
Why is that not coming up for me?
It is. I can here. Let me drop you the link. It's on. You can see it on Bet Pro, or you can go to this.
Yeah,
link.
no, that's what I'm saying. It's not.
If you click on No House Advanced, I haven't hit refresh for 7 minutes. Let's see if it's there. It was on both pages for me. So let me hit refresh because, we said technology. We said we could see the gremlins in action right off the jump here.
It might have been. It might have been, by the way, I might have. So what I think is also, because I'm refreshing the page now as well, it's possible that the Lakers numbers were getting updated at No House Advantage for Lonnie Walker being ruled out.
Oh, yes. They're back.
And
that is.
So one of us might be looking at the wrong numbers.
Okay.
Let's see. Got it refreshing right now. NHA. There we go. Yep. So that's what it was. I didn't have it refreshed recently enough. So yeah, that is the number one popping up for us on the NHA props against the house. LeBron over under 7.5 rebounds. We have him for 8.9. I think that makes a whole lot of sense for the over. And something else too is, Lonnie Walker being out individually. It's not like all of a sudden it's clearly not as impactful as, say, Anthony Davis being out for the Lakers, but they just don't have that many guys who are rotation quality NBA players to give minutes to. And this is a team that, despite LeBron being very old and getting older, literally getting older today.
By the minute.
They have to play him upper 30s minutes just to be competitive in games. And they probably end up losing most of these games anyway, but just massive minutes going to LeBron. I like the over there.
All right. And then we'll do one more here. That's most of our games. Let's look at Trae Young on the other side, assists. Oh, he did not help us in that Halliburton head-to-head contest, but his line is 10.5, just 9.4. I don't know that I'd like the under. To me, that feels a little bit like a stay away. And this is where you say, oh, even though it's like a decent one and it's good projection, I get a little nervous. Lakers play at a pretty good pace. Trae Young actually is among the assist leaders this year. He needs to get 11. That's a lofty number, but it feels like skating on thin ice to me to take the under.
Let's see. Where would I lean on this one? By the way, that Hawks team is a disaster. People, I'd probably stay away from that as well. People clown on the Timberwolves for how poorly the Rudy Gobert trade has worked out for this point. The DeJounte Murray trade hasn't gone much better for the Hawks either. Like, that's also kind of been a disaster. People hate Rudy Gobert so much that nobody talks about the Hawks trade, but the Hawks have also been a right around 500 team that right now, actually, if you look at some of the playoff odds, it's not like the Hawks have that much different of odds to make the playoffs than the Timberwolves do.
All right. We got 4 minutes to go. Black Main says FD is tripping. He can't swap his lineups. I'm not very good on FD. I wanted to figure out how I could pull up my Jose Alvarado lineups, and I can't even find them. I'm not a fan of this landing page, Greg.
You made Jose Alvarado lineups?
I know. That's why I wanted to go fix it.
Yeah. I mean, you should have just not made Jose Alvarado lineups.
I would have just point taken. Okay. There's all the. Oh boy.
By the way, this first
like
pretty strong first quarter. Kristaps Porzingis 5 points, 3 blocks, an assist, and 2 rebounds. But then foul trouble. Somehow Porzingis got in foul trouble with nobody that he needs to defend on the other side of the game. So people in chat who are lamenting the big start to the game for Kristaps Porzingis, reprieve for you, because Porzingis, who, by the way, I would like to have a good game because I'm overweight to the field on him, but foul trouble, that could spell issues for him. On the Magic side of the game, the big fantasy performer so far, Markelle Fultz, 6 points, an assist, and 2 boards for Fultz. I'm happy with that. I also bet the over on his 3 points prop, and he hit that pretty easily because I had it for over 0.5 at plus money, and he hit a 3 on like the 4th possession of the game. Bol, no more fantasy stats since the last time we talked about him. Terrence Ross, probably the biggest dud of the slate so far. Terrence Ross, 0 from the field. He did get stat corrected a steal in his favor, but those are his only fantasy points at the moment.
Nice. That's looking good, Greg. We called it. We can put everything to bed now. The slate is settled. I'm winning. My currently winnings are higher than my entry fee. I'm good, right? That's how it works. Where's the cash out button? I can't.
With the amount of Magic I played, if I was not making more money than entry fees I had right now, I would have made some sort of massive error. Like I don't even know how that would have been possible. If by the way, a steal right now from Markelle Fultz as well. If I was not making money right now, then all hope would be lost.
I'm really not liking FanDuel's interface. All right. Well, there we are. I'm playing Jose Alvarado. Tis what it is, Greg. Tis what it is. Let's see. Any other questions in chat? Don't steal the steal. Spencer Rattler is a funny looking dude. That would be college football. We do have college football projections here. Bowl season winding down, getting ready to get into the playoffs this week, or what do we call it? The semifinals this weekend. That will be fun. It's my Huskies won last night. I made it all the way midway through the third quarter before falling asleep. Woke up and saw that they did win. That was very nice. It's good times. Good times.
Everyone
Greg.
knows Texans at the Alamo don't work out well. EMac could win by the Huskies.
That's right. It was your squad. They were playing one of their former coaches, Steve Sarkisian. Oladipo and Caleb Martin are out. That's really not that unexpected.
It's showing very fast, by the way.
Butler is in. Corey Joseph is starting. Does that do anything for you? Makes you hope people play Corey Joseph.
So, I mean, if that news was earlier, maybe I would have gotten some exposure to him. But at this point, no. Corey Joseph
or Jose Alvarado.
Corey Joseph between the two of them, but ideally neither. Corey Joseph's pretty old and fat now. He's built like Kyle Lowry without the basketball ability at this point in his career.
Nice.
Got a fat ass.
We like to hear that. Let's see here. Oh, sweet. Okay, I just figured out something on FanDuel. It's still it's not efficient, but okay, that's better than what I was doing. All righty. Well, with that, Greg, we're going to get on out of here because you know what? Tis that time. But we do have DFS content for you all tomorrow. We have starting at 9 o'clock, the NHL strategy show. 10 o'clock, you're going to get the NBA strategy show. That's going to be with T. McBee and Rin Pack. At 11, you're going to get college football live before lock, Ben Raza and Matt Kajeski. 1 o'clock, you get Greg and Neil Orfield. You guys are going to be talking a little NFL strategy. And then the deeper dive for the NBA is at 5 o'clock, followed by 6 o'clock, NBA live before lock. Greg and Lamarca going all the way to 7:30 because that's how dedicated Greg is. The only time he gets a day off is if God intervenes.
Yeah, and then I have to take a 2-hour car ride for my New Year's plans.
There we go. Oh, are they fun? Can you share them on air?
Oh, I'm just going out with some people.
Nice.
So
I would be going to bed early. It'd be the standard New Year's. Good times. Netflix and chill. That's what happens when you get old and married.
There you go.
Be smart, everybody. Be smart. Uber exists for a very good reason. But with that, you can follow Greg on Twitter at, what are you at? Greg Ehrenberg?
G Ehrenberg DFS. I'm pretty sure that there's everybody who watches the show follows me at this point, though.
You have a lot of followers. I am at EMac DFS, and producer Tyler is hidden in there somewhere. But with that, we're going to get on out of here. Good luck, gamers. Hit that like button.